Hi, I forgot that I had the little thing. Um, Welcome if you're watching this on replay. If not, you're trickling in. So, 1 second here. This is I haven't this on mirror, so it's so hard. I see sometimes like my hair going crazy in a certain direction, but it's like mirrored. So, anyways, today is going to be an interesting day. Um because a lot of this is going to be a moment of pause, honestly. Um, Not exactly. I mean, it's going to be a lot of talk and stuff, but a moment of pause in our the way that we've been relating and connecting and interacting is what I mean. Interacting with the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively whole thing, and even now Taylor Swift is a big major talking point. And I'll start with like the little low hanging fruit or whatever as people are coming in. Um, I strongly don't believe that Taylor Swift was booed simply by Eagles fans just because she's dating Travis Kelsey. One thing is, and I forgot, but I didn't really know this to begin with. His brother was on the Eagles. So okay, I mean, the fans aren't his brother, but, that puts a little thing. Um, but when you look at other celebrities that got, shown on the jumbotron or whatever, they weren't booed. So I think there's a lot more to that, but I'll leave that for towards the end if we get to it, if not tomorrow. Um, I wanna start talking about this podcast and have some reflection questions that popped into my head. So this podcast was filmed in November 2024, and this was before, as far as we know and as far as we've seen, before Justin knew anything about, oh, the CRD, he's going to be sued, or anything will come out in the press or legally or against him. So that was like the first point of context to this. He didn't really talk that much about the movie, and especially because this wasn't about the movie. But there were two things, two moments in this that were really moving. And one was this secret reason, as he called it, to making this movie, which I don't think it was that secret. He's talked about it so much before the whole press, like early days when he signed up for the project. He talked about this being the reason, his own drive for the movie, for making this movie, was for men to see themselves, um and this is not exactly how he puts it, but he that's what he kept saying. Like, he wanted to make this movie through the female gaze and everything, for the women, but for also the men to see themselves and maybe feel the need or the last straw or whatever to change. Um, and that was like one of the, I don't know, most heartfelt moments, I think, and the most juiciest moments, not in the sense of this drama necessarily, but in the sense of just the reality. I still don't feel like this movie did that justice. But he says that a lot of, or not a lot, but there were, maybe there were a lot. There were men who DM'd him thanking him for this movie and having taken that away as they watched the movie. And that's beautiful. I still feel like that message was lost, and that's such an important message. I said this in one of my earlier podcast, like a few days ago, podcasts, lives. Um, I want to see that movie. I want to see the movie that is made to empathize with the men in these situations that are harming other people. I want to see that movie. I think that's where the conversation should go, and that's where change will happen next. There's been a lot of conversation around what women should do and the awareness um, of what women go through. I want to see those that may be unpopular at times or at the current time, those movies that empathize with those men and actually connect with them in a way where they can understand that they don't have to, that they can understand there is another way, that they can understand they are safe to change. And so he talked about this a lot. I guess I'll go there, um, straight there. But the host said, "What's the message you hope men will receive from this movie?" And how the host was explaining how when he saw the movie, he felt a personal sense of accountability after watching it to call out any man that he sees using any type of inappropriate behavior, words, or anything. That's not how he put it, but basically. And Justin said this was his dream. This was Justin's dream that men would see this movie if they do and take that from that movie. And he said, a little bit later on, I'm like jumping all over the place. If you create a female event film, of course, women are going to go with women, but there's going to be a lot of men that go with men, with the women too. And um, I included that for another, segue, but I think I don't know how many men actually went to see this movie. Um, but apparently some did, and some got the message that he intended to for him to get. Um, he says that this was his dream and prayer that would be what did I write? That would be what a man would experience watching the movie. That's what a man would take away. That he should and can speak out against other men doing inappropriate things. He's not talked a lot about all of this because he wants to be very mindful to not take the emphasis off of what is happening to women at alarming rates. But he talks about reframing the question. And I think that was especially inspired by nomore.org. But um, I think that's probably what moved him at the beginning too, because it's exactly correlating with his personal inner work and his personal work. And I think it was just he read this book and it just spoke to all the work he and the path that he was on already um around this. So taking away why did she stay, taking that, taking the focus away from that into why did he hurt her, and making, enacting change, helping change, yeah, help change happen. Yet the secret reason which I would never lead with is what he said, because this is at the end of the day a movie for women to see themselves and realize if that's the situation they're in, and not, realizing to like have that moment of courage to realize and to do something different. Which I think is it's important. I'm gonna maybe have an unpopular opinion, but I feel like this has been done quite often. And so I don't know we needed one more movie to do this. I think what a gift, every cloud has a silver lining, right? So what a gift. And I don't mean this offenseful, for this movie to have been made for the behind the scenes to be as bad as it got, and we don't even know how bad the behind the scenes were, like, when it started, was it the whole time? But how, and for that to, like, create this, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make a Discord channel, by the way, for us, but how, like, what a gift, like, having all of this, and he talks later on about, like, parents that they did the best they could, and even though we all have some sort of resentment towards our parents, whether we realize it or not. He didn't say this, I say that. But he talked about the resentment that often you feel towards parents, and parents did the best they could. And to realize that, like, truly realize that, and realize that without their mistakes and without their, the places that they failed, so to speak, like, he wouldn't be the person he is without his parents, the good and the bad of his parents, and both of them, not just failures. And I think with this movie, the same thing. What a gift was this movie, because it, and I thought about this at the beginning, towards the beginning, and at the end, I have these reflection questions for us. Like, it opened up the discussion in a way that the movie itself didn't have the power to, for whatever reason. Maybe because it wasn't perfectly made, maybe because the story, that it was created upon wasn't created in that sense. It was created by a woman for women, and what Justin wanted to do with that was so noble and so admirable and so amazing. And again, I want to stress this. I think this is the next step in this healing, and the next step of where this conversation needs to lead is empathizing, connecting with the men in in these situations, um, and looking at that and trying to connect that, and trying to, you know, be there for them so they can stop, the cycle. Because as he said earlier, sorry, I am going to be skipping around. As he said earlier in the podcast episode, pointing fingers at someone, like, you're doing this wrong, doesn't really do anything. It just makes you retreat or puff up, in his words, like, attack. In defense, it makes you defensive, and that's all it does. It doesn't create change necessarily. It might, if that person is open. I know, like, yeah, I retreat or attack depending, but then also I take it in, and people don't understand that. Like, people have a hard time understanding that I actually take it in, or what they're trying to say to me is not that they're having a hard time understanding, but instead that they are hurt by my reaction, and they wish that I wouldn't have to be defensive before taking in what they're saying. Yeah, me too. I don't like being defensive. It doesn't actually, it's not, it doesn't feel good. But, sometimes people do go into that defense mode, and sometimes they do, like, sit with it, and it changes them, and then they reflect on it, and it sits with them maybe years later. It has to, like, simmer and until it emerges. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people push that down so much, like everything else, and they choose that bliss. Ignorance is bliss, kind of bliss, that ignorance, that, um resisting changing their programming, the programming that they adopted, either they were made to adopt, or they, in the ways that they could at that time understand how to create this programming, this shield to keep themselves safe from life, the world, etc. Um, and so I kind of got like so sidetracked. There's just so much to talk about in this podcast that but yeah, I just loved that how many people have watched this podcast that would have never watched this episode of the podcast. That is what I mean, not the whole podcast. Um, and the Man Enough podcast and other things that, he's done, that would have never done, just to, like, find some tea. I call it coffee. I think we've gotten into the tea territory because it's wound down a little bit. It's a little bit more calm. But yeah, how many people listen to this? And I kind of got upset, not upset. I kind of got disappointed because this is how I felt. And I watched this podcast at the regular speed, and then I haven't really seen everyone's commentary on it, but I kind of jumped in quick a little bit here and there. And Donna was saying that, the opposite, and she was encouraging kind of watching it at 2 3 times speed. And I was like, while doing something else or whatever. um but it still got through to her. And some people listen to that fast. It actually helps them too. But I kind of got upset at that. Like, but still, people that were brought for just some tea, some celebrity gossip, some, I call this in my notes the wrong reason, or the wrong reasons, quote unquote wrong, just different reasons, just more superficial reasons. And then ended up hearing what this man is saying, his reflection on being a man, on being a human, on the interaction that we have in the world and everything, and got something away from what took something away from that set them in a very different direction, just because they wanted some celebrity gossip and like wanted to like be like in the know, like you know what will he say, just fine tooth comb the whole thing for anything that would like relate to all of this. um Sorry, I really got off the subject, but to kind of just I like the episode. I'm going to get his book. He intrigues. Yeah, I bought his book just recently too. Yeah. um yeah, it was just beautiful. And it was beautiful, and you could see that he was not himself. If you watch other podcasts that he's done, his podcasts or anything else, you could see he was going through a very hard time that you can't fake that, unless, I don't know, maybe some people can. I don't think so. Sorry if you can hear my parakeets. um he looked, not just like physically, yeah. He looked like he hadn't slept, and he said that a few times, that he wasn't sleeping well for the past few days leading up to this. Now even less probably, or um but yeah, he had a hard time communicating things, in my opinion, that other times he probably would have communicated better, more full, um and more efficiently. But he got through it. And I don't know, I'll go back to like the beginning of it when he talks about this. But I want to like kind of wrap up this point. I'm in the middle of this point. I just kind of I'm 2/3, 1/3 into this point. But he was saying, if you create a female event film, of course women are going to go with women, but there's going to be a lot of men that go with women. And I was thinking, one of the side notes to this, grab your friends, wear your florals. So it was this again, I think it was the wrong movie. It was the wrong time for Blake to take over the movie, and it was the wrong movie for him to direct. I think after watching his thoughts on this, I'm kind of convinced of that. I don't know, but this is my personal opinion. And I say that because yes, I think the book was created by a woman for women, and it was, you know, it had the romance. It had like the romance, not just like for a man, but for life and for being a woman and all that stuff. I think that's, at least that's what I got from, and I haven't read the book. That's what I got from the movie, and from the way that Colleen promoted the book and like all the stuff. And it was about empowering women, which I again will say, like, unpopular opinion. I think we've had a lot of those. I think we need to move further past that. Keep that in the conversation, but also add on the man part of it, because as he puts it, it's a man problem more, because 90 something percent of these violence, in interrelational or partner violence or whatever it's called, is from men. So with those statistics, and it makes sense. I was thinking earlier about like people like don't get triggered. Attachment theory and how like I think statistically I can see in certain societies, especially certain attachment styles are gendered more one gender than other. But I thought of this slogan and I thought of how much of a disservice it made to his point and his goal, and really the overall goal to end this violence and this cycle. Again, I think it's just like moving the conversation, like adding on to it. His slogan, I feel like, would have been more like grab your partner, not wear your florals. I don't know the other part of that. Let me know in the chat if you can think of that. But I think he would have wanted like grab the men in your life, bring them to this movie. I think that would have been a tough sell anyways. So that's the way he really is. I need a deeper dive into him as a whole. I don't know how to explain. He's interesting. Yeah, I'm not him. I don't know him, but that warms my heart. That makes me so happy because just in the sense of like my purpose and what I want for this world and what I feel like I need to contribute to the world, what I want to contribute to the world is, or what I want to see more in the world is what he is, the journey he's on to be a better human, better man, but also a better human, and the society. And that's why I was like intrigued by the Baha'i faith too. I don't think I'll ever be an organized religion again. Um, and not endorsing Baha'i, and I don't really know that much, but it intrigued me because of this idea of like be concerned with what's going on in the world and what the world needs and act on it. Be of service to humanity and be of service to like progressing humanity, of like us being better versions of ourselves, um individually and as a whole. And I think that like, that kind of correlates those if you watch The Housewives of Beverly of not Beverly Hills, of New York, City, oh, I forget her name, Rebecca something Minkoff. She was criticized for, like, how can you do Scientology and be Jewish at the same time or whatever she does. And she was describing Scientology as, like, not a religion, but she did describe it anyways. I feel like the Baha'i faith is like yoga is often like there's the yoga as the religion or whatever, and then the practice. I think the Baha'i can be a practice. Not, I don't think they would want that. I don't think anyone. I don't know. I don't want to offend anyone or anything, but I feel like the concepts of it can apply to any religion, and I don't know. That's where I'm in life, anyways. But yeah, how I would recommend the conversation, and it's not so much him, but I really have enjoyed watching the conversations that he has. Like, he brings a bunch of men to sit around and then talk. um I forget what that's called, but I think it's on the Wayfair channel, YouTube channel, Maria. As a man, I felt a little uncomfortable watching the podcast, but it could be my upbringing. My dad was a strong man. That's interesting. That's interesting. You felt uncomfortable. You felt like it was, um, bringing up things like you weren't, like, aligned with, you know? Like, it was challenging your beliefs of what a man is. Is that what kind of brought up what the podcast brought up, Arnaldo? Um I think a lot of people in this world would understand him. Yeah, and that's that what I caught, one of the tidbits I caught from Donna's live earlier was that, and I've been saying this, I think she said it of course so much better. I struggle with saying things concisely and direct and like efficiently well. But I've been saying this too. Like, I think people I would I this is my I got this impression when people saw that voice note. heard that voice note, and everyone had a different opinion, and a lot of people had this like, "Oh, it's performative," and I'm like, Were we listening to the same thing?" And I was like, "These people are projecting." Or what we would call projecting. I don't know that it's projecting necessarily technically, but like these the people that are either like uncomfortable as men or as women with someone who is able to be that connected and vulnerable with himself, and who is reflective and philosophical and moving the needle forward for humanity. And it can be uncomfortable, um and hard to understand, I mean, honestly, why are we even surprised when we think, not to get religious, but and I'm not Christian, but I know was born under like a Christian, not even a household, but whatever, society. And like, didn't that isn't that the story of Jesus too? Like, of people of God, of whatever, that are doing good and are like more progressive than the rest of the world, and people are, you could say, threatened by that, but I think it's less threatened and more like they just don't understand, and they don't know what to do with that, and they don't know how to hold that. And so they like just, like you said, you either puff up and attack or retreat. So yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of people don't understand him. Um but I think, to go back to this movie and this experience, this awful time, as being a gift, I think that's kind of one. He's so much more known, and what I mean, like, is he's so much more his name and brand is so much more powerful now to enact the change that he's tried to work for so much. Um and I think it's kind of like created this crack in the door for where some people might still don't understand him and like put him down and say he's performative and like don't trust him, he's this and that and whatever. But I think some people that would have the same stance of not understanding him and like, oh, what is he doing, he's so weird, he's so emotional, whatever. um I think there's a crack that some people like got through, where they feel like they got introduced to a whole new world. And I don't know, as men as women, but and to men, but like, in general, I think to ourselves, that kind of like, um self work. He's the type to placate. My father raised us not to give in easily or put up with crap. We had to be thick skinned to live in this world. Yeah. Um. Yeah. No, that's. I feel like it just makes me so sad. I fought so hard to um not play the adult game, the human game. I felt those messages, and I tried so hard to resist them, and lately I've been kind of like, in the past few years I was like, well, maybe people are right to do this, to be thick-skinned. And um but you're also saying, like, he also taught you to be empathetic and mindful. But, like, I've resisted this idea of, like, don't share, don't, be honest. Um, I resisted not to do those things. I resisted to not share. Does that make sense? I don't know, whatever, yeah. Um but yeah, I felt that pull too. It's inevitable. You feel like, and he talks so much about this in this podcast. You feel, whoever you are, whatever gender you are, you feel the pull to be the conditioning that society is kind of formed under for one reason or another. And it can be very uncomfortable if you like go in that direction. It can be uncomfortable when someone is not in that direction, like Justin has worked to not be. Or it can be uncomfortable when someone challenges you in any way of that, or you go through something. One thing that I found so interesting, and I think this is like in this um, point was yeah, I wanted men to see what happens when you don't resolve trauma. I wanted, which I feel like it was underwhelming. I don't feel like I don't feel like it connected that much because the movie was trying to be two different things at the same time. But I want to see this movie. I want to see another movie that's much stronger in this because I think it's beautiful and it's so needed. But I wanted men to see a guy like Ryle, who in his heart is a good man, be unable to control his insecurity, let his fears win and take over and harm the person he loves the most and has helped him find himself, who has helped him believe in love again, and then he hurts her because he never took the time to heal. I wanted I wanted men to see that they could lose everything. And I wanted to do it in a way where in some ways men felt empathy for Ryle. And if they feel empathy, they can see themselves. Avoiding to demonize Ryle and to make him the villain, I'd lose the men for the same reason that he doesn't say the word toxic or toxic masculinity, the words. This movie is about trauma and ending generational cycles. The majority of men that abuse come from abuse, hurt people, and the majority don't change. And this is the point that I was connecting with what we were saying. The only way to stop abusing is for that woman to leave, sadly, right now. And the next relationship, statistically, and the next relationship, he can break the cycle. So, like, he was saying, I didn't transcribe this very well. I was trying really hard, but he was saying basically at this time, statistically, or like whatever, it seems like the only way for this abuse cycle to end is for the woman to leave, or like you're dating and it doesn't go further or whatever, but for the man to like connect enough with the relationship. He didn't say all of this, but I'm trying to to double the words for some reason. um for the man to be hurt enough to change in the next relationship, basically. And there's this trend that's talked about often on social media, the hurt that women experience, and men too, but he was talking a lot about men in this case, um where like, oh, your ex will be a better version of themselves in the next relationship, and oftentimes the version that you were, you know hurt by them not being, and or like you're hurt by that fact, kind of. I was watching Ted Lasso, and it was, it had a little storyline like that, and then that didn't happen. Kind of Rupert reverted. Rupert was his name. He reverted back, um but like this, um forget, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. Gosh, I lost my train of thought completely. But yeah, I don't know. I highlighted this point because I felt it's something that we all kind of know of, if not experienced. So he wanted with this movie to kind of highlight what it would be like to hold for a man to hold his daughter and know that, he never thought that he could find that love, because like, child parent, it's unconditional love. um and then losing her at the same time because of the harm that the man inflicted, and having to make that choice in that moment to protect his daughter from himself because he realizes he is dangerous. um so he wanted men to experience a cautionary tale. um Hoped there'd be a man in the audience who'd recognize his behavior, go get help, and never harm. And he's actually had men, he says, that reached out to him who thanked him for the movie, and they've stopped, um, either preemptively, or in the present, men from continuing to harm, and that makes it all worth it. And I felt like, whoa, that probably felt heavy, knowing what we know now that he went through when he says it makes it all worth it. Like that it is a big it, you know? And the line in the movie that the host points out, he would beg her to leave him, if his daughter found if he found out that his daughter was being abused. That's what he would say. That's like Lily's character asks him. Anyways, but yeah, I'm sorry I kind of got lost in that train of thought. It just like moved me a lot, this point of um I think it takes sometimes, sadly, just bad things to happen for us to really change. And I've struggled with that for a while, for like years, where it's like you don't want to make that, you want the change to happen before it's really that bad. And then I feel like, yeah, it's sometimes like you can't protect the other person or yourself or whoever it is, um from the bad happening, because that's where it changes. And he talks, I think it's from the faith part, about like the wound is where the light enters you, and I think that's from the Baha'i faith teachings, and like the crack and stuff. Where was I in the chat? Sorry. He probably thought as a woman people would take advantage. I think his cut would be spot on. Yeah, you mean like, yeah, yeah, like I was um I have that in my mind, that I think men have, and he talks about that too. When you love, you're weak. Love is weak. Love is vulnerable. It's weakness to be kind. People will take advantage of you. And the female qualities of love, of kindness, that we associate with female, um because we all have them. But yeah, those things are, yeah, you have to be tough. Our parents teach us in many ways, society teaches us in many ways. I think women more and more, not as much before, but I think more and more with the feminist movement, which is a good thing. But I think like the balance needs to like come back in the middle and like balance out, further. We're like, we just started on that. I feel like what, and that wasn't, there was like a lot of like women movements, but when the 30s was as soon as that all started, really, and it trickled in. So but yeah, to I'm having a hard time. There's just like, I just get like, there's just so much to say. I don't know how you can say things so concisely and like directly. I get so lost in my thoughts. There's just like, mm, all these branches open up to me at one point, and I want to say them all, and then I just freeze. Um, but yeah, I think his cut would be spot on, closer to what people would connect to and understand. He's deep in the sense of his whole being. You think, yeah, definitely say I've never met a person like him. No, oh, I hope you meet a person like him from now on. Um, I also like, in the sense that they were like, you've never met someone openly like this, or you think that even privately they're not like this, because he talks obviously about the like he doesn't say it this way, but the secret life of men. Someone else, I think, talked about this, like whether men or women or whatever, like the that we hold secret when we're being vulnerable, when we're being philosophical, when we think, when we love, when we're like, doing the things that are not so society things, but um just authentic human. Like the host actually opened up with um May I like complete this node because I'll forget. But the host started with how um oh, where was it? When he was watching the movie, oh no, like in 2020 when he was going through a divorce, it wasn't quite at the open. The host was going through a divorce and he found himself going through that, and also going through not having any man to lean on and to like connect with and talk to openly and honestly. And he reached out to someone in his phone that was not close. Like he felt like he could reach out to that person in this way, but it was like there's a little distance to it if it didn't work out, is what I understood from that. And that man on the other line opened with, I'm having one of the worst days. I'm fighting with my partner. I can't do this, I can't do that. And it just opened up. They were talking about like men giving other men permission to be vulnerable by being vulnerable themselves. So, but this like, we all do this of like we keep that hidden. Um I even have done it. I didn't start off that way in life. But in the last few years, I was like, well, let me try this thing that people do. Maybe this is the better way. Maybe this will keep me safe. This will keep my relationship safe. Um, and it will, maybe this is, the better way. So many people do it. Maybe this is the one. And I'll say that led me down to being completely disconnected from myself in a way that didn't help me, my partner, my family, the world, that I was like hoping to like have a little bit of positive impact at least. Like it didn't help anyone to like close off. So I've been on both sides, and I'm trying to like undo that. And I can understand, I can empathize with people who don't do that a little bit more, because it's hard. Even though I was there before, now once I got behind that, like, and I'm still quite vulnerable and open, but not quite the same. And once I got behind that wall, behind that shield, like it's really, really hard. Really hard. So I empathize with you, with anyone who's not at least openly that way, if not even to themselves admittingly. Um yeah, but yeah, I agree that I think he's so deep and he's so needed. People like him are so needed in this world. And I don't know that I at this after this I'll say that I don't know that I want his cut. I want him to make, and this is such a hard ask right now. I feel so bad even saying putting this out there because he's going through so much, and I don't know that he'll want to stay in this business, but if he has the strength to stay in this business, I think it's worth it. And he's going to be met with so much resistance like what it's happening right now. But I think I want to see a movie from him, directed, written, co-written, um and produced, of course, by him, exactly to what he was speaking on in this podcast. um yeah, I never heard of Baha'i faith. Yeah. um Me neither. I heard of it, I guess, like, so like a fraction of a second when I think he was on Jane the Virgin, where I was like, "Oh, who is he?" or whatever. Or like, no, he did his TED Talk, I think he mentioned in there. I'm like, "Who? What is that?" And then I don't think I even Googled it at that time. And then I Googled it again, or YouTubed. There's this really cool history of Baha'i faith, because I also kind of thought it was like a branch of Judaism, or like it came from there. It actually came from Islam, but not exactly. It's not Islam, and it's not Judaism. It's not, and it's everything. But it's really interesting. It's an interesting faith. Um, but it has this, like, mystery to me that makes me uncomfortable, because I have my trust issues with religion and with, anything. But, there's this one guy that talks, like, think, like, about, like, just the history of religions and things. I'll try to remember to, me write it down on like a piece of paper to like include it at the end here in the comments or on my activity feed because he goes through like what it is. However, it doesn't really give you that much on the philosophy of it, and that I kind of so far had like watched a video with Rain Wilson, literally like I think it's called "What Is Baha'i Faith," and I watched Justin talk about it in an interview thing that was like I think the YouTube channel was bahaifaith.org or something. So, of course they're all biased in a way because they are, but like, who are you going to learn from other than the people experiencing it every day? Um, and then Penn Badgley is also Baha'i, which I thought is so. I, it's interesting because they don't really talk about it. They don't lead with that. Would have never known. I think Justin is the first one that like has spoken a bit more about it. But honestly, like not even enough. I just got curious at this point. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting faith. I love it. I love what I've learned so far about it, but I'm not in right now becoming anything. Um, and I think, like I said, it's an interesting food for thought. Yeah, came out early and didn't want to miss the live. Hi, Maria. Okay, yeah, I'm all over the place. I went right in the middle of it of the podcast. So now that like you all are here, I'm gonna go through the notes in more of a sequential thing, and I started with like, were you able to sit with these men? Actually, I went back up in the middle of the podcast and wrote this, like, because I was, really feeling what they're them being there and talking with each other, and I thought, how many people were able to, like, watch them and actually be with them, hold space for what is happening, and listen to them? Because I think we all went in to get the tea, get the coffee, get the whatever, the gossip. What new little tidbit, of information can we get from this? And I've watched other things of his, but I knew that's not what I was going to get from there. But this one I went in with that thought, and then I found myself just so moved and intrigued by their conversation, and then I found myself very empathetic to these two men. I found myself like found myself giving my heart to them. Um, Even though he was emotional towards the end for sure. Um, but it wasn't like, I feel like it was still kind of like not surface level, but like top level, very quick podcast. It was just an hour. But yeah. So that's like just a food for thought. Like, how um have you felt for them throughout the podcast or things like that? But yeah, just a very superficial side note, I want to say, because this just bugs me. I've seen so many of these like podcasts, Diary of a CEO wannabe introductions. They didn't do Samir, I think is his name. He didn't do a terrible job with this, but it got to me so much that he was saying almost word for word whatever, I forget his name from Diary of a CEO. I don't know if he made that the first time, but this like jump cuts at the beginning, just create the intrigue, and then lead straight into this like boom, and then it's just like talking about how most of you are not following. So please follow and help us bring you the content, basically. And I was like, totally legit. That is true. I think I know my audience is like 89% subscribed. Not subscribed, sorry. 89% of my audience is not subscribed. And that seems to be across the board for everyone. Um, so legit, but I just like, I don't know. It was just a personal note. Like, stop copying that. Also because it's not really fun. I don't like it. It's like, it's kind of fun, but Just one podcast having that is enough. Anyways, so Justin. Um Oh, the host was saying that when he was reading this his book, Man Enough, which took him a while to read it because I think he was just reading it, my understanding. Because his girlfriend, his current girlfriend or partner, fiance, whatever, I think, I don't know, um, gave it to him. And Justin found that interesting, saying that probably most of the book sales are of women buying the book for their male partners or men in their life, one way or another. But he found it, and I love this part. He found that it wasn't just an actor trying to write something. It felt very authentic to Samir. I think it was the host. I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong. But he had resistance to read it, and Justin asked why. And he said, the fear that growing up a certain version of myself, and I don't know, Arnaldo, maybe that relates to what you're saying, I had to hold on to everything that, so he had to hold on to the version of himself that he grew up as and that he was taught to be. I'm like, which one of us is not able to relate to that? I don't know. I think a lot of us aren't, but like if you at this point, if you like have a little bit of like self-reflection, I think yeah, we all have this version that we think we need to be, whether it's like, born earlier on or later on. So he talks about the man, the divorce, and not having men around to have real conversations with. And oh, and then Justin also said that his paperback version doesn't have his face on it. And I thought maybe you could have thought about this the first time around, but okay. Because yeah, that probably was maybe a reason men aren't buying that book, not just because it's his face or there's a certain relationship with his face and what that would mean, but I think because if you just have the words man enough, I think it would be mysterious enough for men to like pick it up, or for anyone to be like, oh, what is that, is this a manual? you know and putting someone's face on it, even if it's not like, because it feels a little bit more women oriented, but even without that, so the men here, let me know if you feel a certain way about his particular face or just a guy's face on a book. Would you pick it up? Because he's like, yeah, that's probably why men don't pick it up. So in the paperback version, he took his face off of it. He talks about the toxic word. He doesn't use toxic masculinity, and I love that. In 2020, I was having a conversation, or I started having conversations with my partner who we weren't together at that time, I guess. And but we were talking a lot about like the feminine and masculine energy is and qualities and how society perceives it, and it definitely made me have a lot more, I guess people would say respect, but I respected him already, but like a lot more something positive towards him, our understanding of him in a positive way, like, like, okay, he's thinking deeply about these things, or he knows more, but more than I did too. And talk about permission. Let me take a moment. I just realized, because this whole thing of like giving permission, it he gave me permission to be my vulnerable self to the outside world and to a man. And to Maria's point, yeah, I think that even though I was like super open and super vulnerable, I would like slam people with my openness and my honesty, and like I would tell you anything that you didn't really maybe care to hear one way or another. And I think that that's part that person, those people that don't want to hear about it, and part me, like about emotions or about how I'm feeling, or how I'm hurting or whatever. But this idea of, I remember, and I say this like earlier on in dating, in us dating, like I remember just suddenly, like my voice now is like lower, but I remember my voice went higher and more like soft, and I was more feminine than I've ever felt in my life. And these conversations that we're having in 2020 on the phone, I remember like now in this perspective, like it gave me permission for this man to appreciate and honor, or at least like be aware and have a positive um and empowering view of feminine qualities. It gave me permission to be those. I still very much, I 100% struggle with those. I don't think I'm good at being those at all. Getting like emotional. Um but like maybe that combined with this podcast, maybe I'll be able to like break through a little bit more through that, because isn't it interesting though that like a man had to give me permission to be, cuz yeah, I can relate. Like I felt like I needed to protect myself. I felt like I wasn't safe to be those. Like, if I was feminine, I would be weaker. And we talked so much about that. But anyway, so but also talked about the toxic masculinity thing. I don't know if we talked about that particular phrase, but like the swinging of like from super misogynistic masculine to like the feminist movement and stuff, and how like how the cost that came to women and men. Both extremes have their cost, and so I think the toxic masculinity term is one of those things that it had its moments. We needed that shock value. We needed to be pushed out of our comfort zone or out of like our zombiness, and now we can let that go and talk about the nuance of it and the reality of it. He talks about how it's also been politicized, meshed with identity politics, and he's trying to take all of this out of the politics, because it's not about political parties, it's not about politics, it's not about feminism or not. It's about a human experience. And also that it's often weaponized against men to make them feel less than, ironically. And it's this like paradox of that he was talking with like men who harm, is this paradox of they're harming because they have been harmed. And like, how do you reach those people? And yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, because he didn't say, "I would be a rich man right now." He said the world would look differently, and speaks more further to who he is, I think. And then he says even things that are carried by men and are harmful to both the men and the women and people in their lives, um, as what we would say are toxic traits or toxic masculine traits. Nothing good ever comes from pointing finger at somebody, because the instinct is to retreat or come back, like puff up. Neither foster unity, compassion, understanding, empathy. Regardless of the oppressor or oppressed, important to acknowledge the hurt that exists. And that's where change happens. I don't know if you've had this experience, or you've given this experience to someone. It's one of the hardest things to say. What is going on over there? Oh. It's one of the hardest things to do, is to hold space, to be strong enough or weak enough, to be vulnerable enough, to be human enough and aware enough to be able to hold space for someone's hurt to exist. And that's when it changes. Validating someone's pain changes the hurt that they're inflicting. Not always and not instantly. And it's, there's like extremes and all that stuff. And it's not necessarily the person in front of you or next to you that needs to do this. Like sometimes it's so deep in a person that a movie needs to happen, a movement, a conversation on a grand scale needs to happen for that change. Because if someone, especially like in partners in relationships, you'll never listen to what your partner says unless you've done so much work, like him and Emily and others. Most of us, we're still very much caught in that like power dynamic or that defensive place where we will never, take our partner's like advice. Even if we do, like part of our minds is like, hope they're proven wrong or something. I don't even know. Not necessarily that, but um, it's harder, when you're that close. But when you're seeing it more, that's why comedians are amazing because they say things, and sometimes there's comedians that are just doing things for shock value and just to be nasty. And to just kind of have this cathartic expression of like the darkest sides of themselves or humans. But sometimes they're saying, even in those moments, they're saying things that we wouldn't not otherwise say, but we need to hear or say, and that can change us. And with comedy, it makes it light enough, defenseless enough for us to actually take it in. Um, so yeah, but at the core, this is what fosters change is when you are able to hold someone hurting that's also hurting you or hurting others. Again, like don't do this in like the extremes when there's like physical violence and other stuff. But as a society, like we need to empathize and we need to connect with our pain ourselves and with others, I think. And so I loved that little tidbit. That's like combination of what he said with like my take from it. Um yeah, I'm sad to say I didn't know of him or her in the movie until this lawsuit. Um, you didn't know of Blake Lively or Emily or who is her, Maria. People are quick to judge him as creepy. I think he's just straightforward and open. I can't think of the right words. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Welcome to the club today. I have moments where I'm like, oh, I words, and moments when I'm like, where are the words? Are his parents alive? Yeah, his parents are alive. Was this the way he was raised, or did he have enlightenment? He went through something that made something click inside. Oh gosh. I don't remember where he talks about this. Maybe in his book? I think maybe in his book, Man Enough, Maria. He talks about how he was raised, I want to say. Um as far as like Baha'i faith, I forget his parents found their way to the Baha'i faith. So he was, I think, technically born in it. Um but before that they were like, I think one was Christian, one was Jewish. And then as far as like the philosophy talks, like even in this podcast he talked about he had still resentment and issues around his dad and how like he wasn't perfect and stuff. But I think they taught him, yeah, it was a combination. I can't speak to that too much, but I remember I think I read it in his book, Man Enough, where he talks about how he was raised, where his values come from. The enlightenment part, I think, came. He talks often about that coming like in his mid 20s after um yeah, because the his teens and his early 20s, he talks about trying to be this man, this like, and he gets to it further in the podcast when he talks about It Ends With Us, but put this like facade on, this mask of what a man should be. And then um I think after the second relationship, I don't know, I'm sure it's in his book, but I think he said it in this podcast, like after his second relationship, he was like enough and he went inward and started his search. And I think also from another interview that I remember, he was saying he got off of religion and faith and all that almost off it completely, or in either way, he found himself back to it right as he met Emily, or before he met her, and or the second time, I don't know. And so it was like it was a journey, but I think he's always been this way at the same time. Um yeah, but I don't nothing stands out right now as far as like what was, from what I've heard him speak, what was that like moment of like aha, that light bulb going off, that click inside, as you said. um yeah, definitely buying the book. Yeah, I mean, I'm not getting any proceeds. Maybe I'll link my Amazon, if you want to get it through Amazon or whatever, my Amazon, what are you, associate link or whatever for the commission. But I'm not getting any proceeds, but I bought it. I'm all for it. um I haven't read it that much though. I only read, I think, the beginning and the one chapter, um of his like addiction and relationship. Like he also talks, he was in college. He had two girlfriends in his 20s, or like before Emily, basically. And in college, his first girlfriend was emotionally abusive. And so I read that kind of chapter. So I guess I don't know, maybe it's a bad book otherwise, but I think it's a pretty good one. I don't know, people liked it even before this. Maybe you can do the sequel with a different actress, of course. I think people will watch. Yes, it is linked in the description below. Yeah, I can also just quickly get it now too. Yeah, do we really want to continue with this franchise? I don't know. I Like I said, my personal choice would be he just does another movie altogether. But right now he still has the rights to all the sequels. But I think um the sequels are about like not Ryle. I think that's like the important one to get. Like to empathize with the man, not the one man, the men multiple. But my accent is getting in front of me. Is getting in the way. What am I even saying? So the paperback and the hard copy are, those are, yeah, I get like 3%, so it's not much. But and you don't have to use that link. So yeah. I keep wanting to go to do like, I want someone to do a massive poll. I'm so curious how many people are finding him as creepy as they did before the last couple of weeks. Um Maybe I'm an optimist. I think less people find him creepy. But yeah, um I think he's very in touch with being human, and that scares some people, or they just don't understand. They don't even understand to the point to be scared. Um and I think to go into like, cuz a lot of people are more and more speaking, why are people not talking about this? Chelsea Handler was the only one mentioning this on, you know, I don't know, online, or not online, on the TV. And I think this was actually a point towards the end, like after talking about this, but it's a great moment to take. Um, I think in part because of the connections that Ryan Reynolds has with everyone. And I also think that's why he has those connections, in order for him to not be talked badly about and stuff. But I also think, and this might be a little too wooey, I feel like it might also be the resistance from leaving the misogyny and leaving the ignorance times, leaving, the comfort zone. Um Can I find that really quick when I was like talking? No, I can't. But yeah, just the comfort zone of maybe. Yeah, okay, I found it. So yeah, getting pulled back into the subconscious comfort zone. So we all have this comfort zone. Society has a comfort zone. With the pandemic, we all worked from home. That went fine. And then somehow we are finding ourselves not in that. And we kept talking like, "Oh, this changed the world. It changed everything." And yet we went whoop, right back. And I think this is the same resistance that there is to Justin. And I think it's more than just connections and people not wanting to upset Ryan Reynolds or Blake Lively, but it's really Ryan Reynolds. I think that they would upset because he has the power as far like the big media. Um, and yeah, I think it's also just that people don't want to progress because they don't know what that means. They feel it unsafe, understandably so. Change is not comfortable for sure. And how do you know it's a safe change or it's a non-safe change? And yeah, I think what I said was, watching this podcast, I was thinking the whole time, how many people are watching this podcast for the wrong reason, as I said earlier, and as a result, discovering more of themselves, discovering a safe space for their inner self or the inner self of others too. Um, and for whatever they're going through that they ignore, maybe in the name of this like avoidant bliss, ignorant bliss, avoidant peace, we often get pulled towards our subconscious comfort zone when we want or don't want to do better, be better, experience better. Sorry, whenever we want to do better, be better, experience better, but we are at the same time the one standing in the way of that because we're afraid, and then also the whole world at the same time is pushing us back into our learned programming. Keep safe. The better the devil you know. Go back there to men are bad, men are creepy, men are going to be harmful to women. Um Men are less human, they're like more robots or whatever, all the different things that society's built as far as like gender and stuff. So when I think him as a person and his message and everything gets a pushback not just from Ryan Reynolds and his connections and people not wanting to upset that or the way of things and maybe their own skeletons coming out of the closet unrelated to these people. But I think it's also like just the whole world not being that, maybe being ready but being very resistant to that. Um so, yeah, he's definitely different. I agree. The majority of people don't want to understand. We're so hardwired to believe in there's only one right way. Yeah. 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 Like even success, like there's one way. I watched this video on 10,000 hours. This is not this one especially, it's not related at all, but yeah, the 10,000 hours is a myth, but it's convenient. It's comfortable. It's easy. Well, okay, if I, you know, write songs for 10,000 hours, if I play golf, because I guess it started from Tiger Woods, and most people that are out there that have made great advancements, that did amazing things, most people don't fall into that 10,000s. Most people tried so many different things until they landed on that. Like they said Van Gogh was one of them. And it's like these like other lives that people had that help them in whatever they end up doing because it connects things in ways that make things innovative. But yeah, we're hardwired to believe we want to because it's comfortable if we have the manual. The manual to genders, the manual to life, to relationships, to um, keeping safe at the end of the day, to being loved and keeping safe. um that's the word I was trying to think. He makes me want to discover a different way to see life. That is so wonderful. um that is so wonderful. Yeah, same. Yeah, even I was I've done all of this like philosophy stuff all the time, not to this extent, like I'm learning so much from this, from talking about this, from talking with you guys about it, from hearing like questions you have, like, oh wow, I didn't what do I think of that? Or like just like your different experiences or similar experiences. Or yeah, it's helping a lot. I love this. I love this, like having this be like this conversation that's like created out of this terrible circumstance, but the silver lining and the positive impact. Um yeah, and the sad part of like nothing great comes out of comfortable and out of painlessness. Like you have to be uncomfortable, whether to the extent of suffering or not, but you have to be super uncomfortable for change to happen in yourself and in the world. And here we are. Um the yeah. The competition aversion bullet points. So the host of the podcast, um Justin mentioned that when he heard him speak on his own TED Talk or something. I don't know. He kind of felt this joy in realizing that years ago he would have had this like what the YouTubers have talked around this issue. Like everyone, like, oh, it's mine, and it's not. It's like we're all in this, and there's no competition except there is. And I felt it recently, and there's been moments where I'm like, hey, this person's saying something after me, and they're like getting all these like thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching it, and like it's human to feel that. But at the end of the day, yeah, like he talks about how like another time in his life he would have felt insecure about it, that this man is saying the same things that he's saying, he's talking about similar experiences or like similar mission in life. um I mean, honestly, his podcast on his YouTube right now at least is like yellow, like man enough too is. It's like you borrowed from a lot of places, this guy, but now Justin felt happy that the conversation exists beyond him, is how I wrote it at least. And that he's not the only one, and it's getting out there and more people are talking about their experience. And um what's the word that I'm trying to find? Expanding the conversation. And I guess this guy's in Canada. So like just new audience. And that's what I felt with our conversations around and our videos and lives and things with this around this issue is like, yeah, we're all talking about the same thing, but we all have different experiences, different points of views. And even when we're literally saying the same thing sometimes, oftentimes it's not. I watch, like I mentioned, Popcorn Planet. Why is it past tense? I want to know. It's harder to pronounce. And I watch Donna, Daily Dose of Donna, and I watch Dave Neal and some others, here and there. Um, I've not once gotten the same exact experience watching any of them, right? Everyone has their own unique way, and it's awesome when you're able to find different people that talk about the same exact thing because you're getting a much more like wholesome experience, not experience, I know, food for thought is the only way I've been able to like say it. um and then he talks about, he asked Justin, like, what do I need to know about the man in front of me to know who he is today and who is Justin at his core? And he says that he, it's interesting. He basically says he sent a couple of text messages. He sent a text message to his best friend and partner, producing partner, Jamie, and Tara, not Tara, right? Tara, president of his company. And then he said that he was kind of burning the candle out. That he wasn't in the best place. He was exhausted. He hasn't given himself time to recover and heal from this intense year. And they definitely knew what tidbits to show, to get us all to watch. But he doesn't go into, talking about that. Maybe I don't think he went and they cut that out. I don't think he at that time knew that he was going to have to. And he was in a process of healing and not in processing and stuff. So, um, and he said some things along with sometimes it's easier to fall back into our programming and be swept away in the current of self and be overtaken by the wave of success and opportunity. Um, and then not like take the time to heal, to rest, to get to what's important and stuff. I cannot believe that I'm watching a commercial about this like mascara that I just bought that I never saw a commercial for before. um Anyways, and then he texted them, let's prioritize our time. Things we say yes to are things we feel will move the needle forward and nothing other than that, because he just needs to heal. And then he texted his assistant, who is also a female, and he texted his publicist Jen, who was in the room. Yay, Jen Abel. I'm a fan of hers, even though like, can you be a fan of a publicist? I don't know. So far, I am. She went through a lot. She went through a lot. And then he like similar messages, and I for a moment I thought, isn't it interesting? He is surrounded by women. His publicist, his assistant, who is like his right hand, I think he called her. The president of his company. I'm guessing. I don't know if it's Wayfair or like the Man Enough, or whatever that other part of it is. Um, I think that's very interesting. I think it's very interesting in a positive way. Yeah, I don't know. But also, I will say at the same time, assistants and publicists, and they typically, I think, tend to be more women, anyways. Um, but yeah, still, still, it was something that perked my ears up. So he says, so who I am is a work in progress, always trying, and I love this, always trying to be radically sincere and authentic to himself so he can be of service in the best way possible and have the most impact. And sometimes he gets lost. And I think he said healing is illinear, like not linear, and growth is linear. I think that's what he said. I mean, it would make sense to me. Healing is not straight. It is up and down. You heal and you go back, and you move forward and you go back. But overall, it's like, a progress forward, and growth. You're growing every single day. So I think that's what he said, but I'm not 100% sure. And then without setbacks and plateaus, you don't have the opportunity to regroup, was another point that he made. I'm getting a lot of Mint Mobile ads, so annoying. Yeah. Everybody said, listen. Yeah. I mean, the device didn't have to listen to me. I literally ordered it on Amazon, and I'm trying not to order on Amazon. I just put the Amazon links, but it's so hard. I boycotted them for a while because they took this, I sent well, my mom helped me to like years ago to send this camera, this 400 $500 camera, to Beach Photo, and she sent it to Amazon instead. The Amazon was a stapler. So I got only the $5 back for that stapler, or $7. And they just took me through hoops until it was like, well, 90 days passed, so it's too late. But I kept waiting. They did really bad things, not ethical at all. So I boycotted them for a while, but then it's impossible now to not do Amazon. And Mint Mobile, to be fair, it was already around the holidays. I remember it was just constantly on there. But yeah, like I wish I could be like, no, can we say no? No to Mint Mobile. We want to boycott this commercial. like more than any other commercial. I feel like. And I do wonder though, is it because they're not is it because people are not buying Mint Mobile or like opting out of it because of all of this? And so they have to like ramp up their commercials, their ads, so they get people. I don't know. I wouldn't mind living on this island, on his island. It sounds like it would be peaceful. It is real world we live in, though. Yeah, yeah. Well, but as he says, he's a work in progress, and I think in his book he talks. And I found that in his book, like, he is not perfect, and he talks, actually, the next thing he talks about is, like, he wants to dispel this myth that self-help gurus and podcast hosts and people that write books and whatever, um, we all have this idea, like, "Oh, they probably are great therapists." How many of us think therapists have like the best relationships and the best lives, and yet somehow we're all works in progress and we're not perfect. And he wants to dispel this myth that somehow these people that we look up to and are leaders of thought or whatever, have somehow the keys to the kingdom, and they're in bliss and joy and happiness all the time. And he's like, that's not true. Jay Shetty also has spoken about this. Like, he comes across like he has it figured out. And I love how he talks sometimes. I haven't listened to his stuff in a while, but talks how in a lot of ways his wife has it more figured out than him. Like, his wife is better at meditating than him. Like, she is more disciplined with it, and diet and stuff. And so, I like it when people are trying to like reveal, like, hold on, I'm just a human like you, and I don't have it figured out. That doesn't mean that they don't have things that they have figured out more, that they're further along in some areas or in some thoughts. But yeah, he talks about that. And um canceling their service, maybe Ryan is losing customers, so push those ads. Yeah. um I don't think Justin could ever be the president, if that's who you're saying. Because I doubt you're trying to say Ryan would be an interesting president. I think Ryan would be an interesting president, but I think Ryan is already kind of the president. I think Trump is very much like Ryan and vice versa. Um, I do find it interesting because people are saying that if you're Team Justin, you're on politically on the right, which is interesting because I don't think there is one way or another. I don't think there is a political like difference, but I think um Blake and Ryan, the way that they operate feels very much like how I feel like Trump and Elon Musk and all these people operate, and their philosophy, their business mindset. And someone was saying, was it one of you guys? Someone was saying how, like, no, was it Penn Badge? I don't know. Someone was saying that Blake was very much producer, corporate kind of mindset, almost not corporate, but like, make money and like make a successful movie in terms of those things, people seeing it, etc. And Justin is more like the director, no, maybe it was like on, I don't know. I kind of merged everything. And Justin was more the creative. Absolutely the director, the visionary, the artist, the philosopher. And those just clashed. Like, that's when, like, sometimes it works when you are able to merge two people. You need both of those for a movie to be successful and reach masses. Um but they need to be friendly and understand each other and work together, but they worked against each other. I don't think necessarily, I don't know if Blake even thought that to begin with, but wherever it started, whoever it started with, like, yeah, they did not mesh. Hi P, welcome. I like how it took me like a few chats to understand that when you're saying hey oh, like because my screen name starts with O. I think that's not the reason. I don't lean one way or the other, just on the person who's going to make a difference. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. Um, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like that's so hard to tell though, who's going to make the difference. And I hope, moving forward, who was it recently that was saying like there were more independents voting independent, or people voting independent in this election than democratic or something. And oh, Jonathan Stewart. And that I think Jonathan Stewart or Trevor Noah. Oh gosh. So many people that I've lost touch with, like, to watch. Um and yeah, like in Europe, they don't have bipartisans. I think most countries, if not all countries in Europe, that have like a democracy, which is most countries in Europe. So yeah, I think that would be a great day when we just weaken the system, honestly, because that's the only way to get rid of like the buying power of politics. I feel like I think it was Jonathan, whatever his name is. Oh my gosh, I just blanked on. I think he was saying that. But anyways, yeah, not here for the politics. At least right now. I don't know. I get overwhelmed with the politics. But like in terms of like people that are looking at it for the profit and for that kind of mindset. I mean, Trump has always been a businessman, whether he was good or not, how whatever you think of him. I think Blake and Ryan have that same mindset. They're going to do whatever it takes for their profit. And that is a business person, that's a business owner mindset. That's what you have to have right now. And the doing good and evolving, humanity is not going to make you a profit. Ironically, that's what people are talking about with Justin. Like, oh, he's just a feminist for the money, for the um maybe fame, but I think for the money is people's kind of like idea. And it's like the clearly not so much because did you know him? There needs to be a little bit of like business mindset to it, but he would have been, if he was truly like that ruthless and cutthroat and whatever and just using feminism, he would be further along. That's what I think. But anyways, but back to this like podcast, getting through that. But so yeah, he's in a work in progress. But I love this, and I highlighted this, and it comes back later. This radically sincere and authentic like idea, being radically sincere and authentic. And then um I don't know, it just like also spoke to me because going through my own healing journey for the past year, I got burned out and I just was like, I can't. And I even now I'm in a place where I'm like, I just need a break and I need to be angry and I need to have resentment and I need um to experience these things that I'm trying to like heal, but the world is not healed. And so it's like, it's just this constant fight and this constant, like, you're trying to go forward, but the world's not moving forward with you at the same rate. And then you get burned out and, I don't know. I just like, yeah, there's moments of setback. Um, but yeah. And but I like how he talks about it, and I've mentioned like Cameron Diaz talking about like this octopus effect, like going inside yourself to like push forward. Otherwise, like you would struggle to go forward. And so like you have to go all the way in or all the way back, like retract, have these setbacks, have these plateaus in order to regroup and then move forward more. And then the myth, just talked about that. Um, I loved, I love men talking about men in a loving way. and women talking about men in a loving way. I don't feel you hear this almost ever. And this next part, he says this that is just so heartfelt or like heartful. Um, but we hear people talk about men as strong, as toxic, like positive or negative traits, but like never from the heart, never like in a love, like with so much love of men. And so he says that um sorry, my why are you not muting? What is going on? Um he says that as men, we just want to be better. And he emphasized you have to like listen to it. And I'm sorry, I'm not like super on it with like clips and stuff. But if you listen to it, like he has so much heart when he says this, and he's so honest and authentic in this moment. Um, and the trap of masculinity, we're on this never ending quest for improvement is what he talks about, and we just want to be better, and society then tells you in order to be better, in order to be enough as a man, in order to be loved, you need to be masculine enough, you need to stay above anxiety, to provide, etc. And then if you're not doing the healing work, you end up compensating one way or another and then starting hurting yourself and others. And he talks about some sad statistics of cardiovascular health going up and all the stuff. I think for everyone, but especially men, there's a lot of stress and a lot of I think there's a lot of stress, and I don't know that much, but I feel like there's a lot of stress because there's a lot of chaos right now. I don't know that society has like part of society is in the past of what a man should be, and in the future of what a man should be, or in this like alternate reality of what a man should be, our understanding, trying to figure it out. Same with women and the relationships of genders and genders, that have come out, that whole conversation around gender and self-identity. And so I think there's a lot of stress, and it's not so clear, at least in the past. I feel like you had it, whoever you were, you had a manual, and it can be very stressful and can cause some health issues to be inauthentic to yourself and to not be vulnerable and stuff. But I think a lot of this like health issues of stress issues like cardiovascular health and others, I think it's also from this chaos of just wanting to be better, not knowing how to be better, getting mixed messages of what that means, not knowing. And then also like with dating, even you think, let's say a man, you go, you go out with a woman, and maybe where that woman's like personal journey and growth is like can dictate where you're going next with yours. Like, are they also further along in the growth journey where, they're not just like looking like for me personally, and I think I had this somewhere in here. Um Maybe not here. My parakeet is like, yeah, where? She was looking too. Um but I've never been attracted to a man for his ability to provide. That didn't interest me. I've also not been attracted to I talked yesterday about Colin Farrell. Like he was the only guy that I ever call like hot, and I only like objectified him. But other than that, like I just didn't see it that way. And it's not like, oh, I'm better because of that. Like I wasn't conditioned in that way. And even though like my mom always said, like, you need to marry a doctor, you need to marry, a rich man so you can do whatever you want and all these things. And I was also, I think, maybe because wherever I was, however I was born and grew up and everything else that put me together to be me, I was more so against that idea. Like, no, what does that mean? Like, I'm not enough. But, yeah, like I think I've heard from my partner, I heard, and it was like just a sad moment, like all these experiences where, yeah, a man's experience is there's plenty of women that, not saying that those things that I wasn't looking for in a man are necessarily bad, but um of women that aren't, that haven't gone to their growth further along in their growth journey, and they objectify what a man should be to them and stuff. And sorry. Just like that boy just in my space, and I feel so bad. And I can't even. She like bites me if I try to get her off. Um, yeah. And anyways, and so, but like when you're trying to be better and you're getting one message from this one woman, and then another woman comes and maybe she wants you to be vulnerable and to be, your whole self, and she's like stuck in my hair. And then that gets confusing and you're like, well, so who should I be? And so I think there's that, a lot of that anxiety too. Um I don't know. I felt for him. Well, not for him only, but like for what he was saying, that, we all want to be loved. And so to have these rules of what gets you loved as a man, I feel for that. I That's unfortunate. Um and then maybe like I'll share this part because I do have a minute 17. Um he talked about um um yeah. Okay. So let's go minute 17 here. Whoop.
We have men that are dropping like flies from cancer, cardiovascular disease, or suicide. Yep. And so back to your question, this is a long-winded way of answering it. I share all of that because I also want to dispel this myth of having it all together, of perfection, of like the guy who wrote the books on masculinity, who did the TED Talks, who who seems like he's healed and has it all together. Today, sitting down here with you before we came, I had anxiety because I'm not feeling like my full self. And yet I came today despite, no sleep and not feeling great and, all of the barriers, because of also the work that you do and the potential for the work that we can do together and what this conversation can have for the man who's sitting there who maybe is feeling the way that I'm feeling today. So I thought, okay, what an opportunity to share radically and honestly who I am today, how I'm feeling this morning. And it might feel different tomorrow. But if I keep that to myself and I don't share it, then I don't give you or any man who's listening permission to do the same.
Permission is the key word there, isn't it? I remember the first time I ever experienced vulnerability from another man, it felt like I was finally given the permission to do the same.
Of course.
And I was shocked by it all.
Yeah.
All right. So that was, for a second I was like, did I press the right button? That was one of the big moments that I was like, I need to save this timestamp. Because I couldn't transcribe it fast enough and the right, but that's where they talk about this, you know, permission given. And I was thinking like someone could say that, like, well, who are you? Why do I need your permission? That's not how they were talking, but I can see how someone would like take it that way. But I had a moment on this live where I was like, whoa, I had a moment. Wasn't a man. And you can also say, well, as a woman, that what does that say, that you needed a man's permission to be vulnerable, to like your feminine qualities? I'm not saying it was great, I'm just saying that was like my experience. I think a lot of people's experience as a man, being given permission by your partner, um your female partner, or again, like this conversation is often around the the two gender. Gosh, I can't find my words with this right now. Like man and a woman. And I I think there's also this permission from other women and other men, if you're a woman or a man. But I think that's it's kind of also beautifully said when you're like really taking it as they are saying it. And so I wanted to include that. Um, it also kind of hit me just personally as a whole of if I am not authentic to my feelings and my experience, if I'm not sharing when I'm hurt or when I'm happy, when something um brings me joy or brings me sadness, and then also go deeper into that. But if I'm not authentic to that, my family used to say that somehow I find, all these people that have all these like medical issues. And I was like, no, I think it's like what you're willing to put out there. And I would openly talk about, my stomach issues. I have acid reflux, and I would, and that would give others permission to say, oh, I have that too, or I have this, or I have that. And before I knew it, I would always like find myself in these like deeper conversations about like either medical issues that would go into like more philosophical kind of issues, emotional stuff, or vice versa. But I would not be shy to say how I'm feeling. There's so many people that say, well, I can't complain, or, it's going great. I had a friend who, oh, what would he used to say a lot? Uh, I don't remember what he was saying. Not splendid, but something like that. It's like it's splendid. It's going splendidly or whatever. He did not use that word, but something like that. And I was like, but how do you really feel? Especially like being friends and stuff or with a partner. Like I'm not asking you to placate yourself and your emotional life. I'm asking you to like um I'm asking you because I care and I want to know actually how you're feeling and what you're going through, what you're thinking about, what is your reality right now, what are you struggling with, um, and how I found anyways to do it is just sharing my experience. And I found that men and women, just because I share it doesn't mean they'll share back. But sometimes it opens up. They're like, "Oh, okay, this is safe. Oh, she's doing it. Oh, I can do it too," kind of thing. So I loved how he talked about that. Um, he does look exhausted, yeah. Do you think he will survive? Yeah, he yeah, it's a tough word, especially as that clip came at the wrong time. This mess he's going through, will it make him feel sad or disappointed for either outcome of this trial? I'm way ahead of myself. I'm concerned about his mental and physical health. Me too, Maria. Sending him. Maria's talking together. Do you either of you or both of you pronounce your name Maria? Or are one of you Maria or something else? Just let me know. Me too, sending him strength and physical healing vibes. He must feel stressed out and doesn't show it. Thank goodness for his family and friends. Yeah, he's definitely showing it. In this podcast, he looks stressed. And this was before all of this. I think it was during the Superbowl yesterday or another one of my videos. I think both him and Blake and Ryan looked bad too. Regardless of who these people are, I think they're all stressed because the reality of being in a legal battle is a lot. I remember someone coming to my high school one time talking about prison and how people throw prison around like, oh, the person only got 3 months. Oh, they only got 6 months of jail. And the guy was like, you don't know what you're talking about until you are there. Um, and that's why they have the different sentences for the different crimes and all the stuff. But like, this is not like they're going to prison, but I'm saying like once you're in like something that's like legal battle or like in prisons, things that we take for granted because we see it on TV and we read it in the news and like, oh, whatever, what's the big deal? There's stress probably, but not a big deal. But I think it's not what we usually go through. We don't usually go through that every day. Most of us will maybe never experience being sued or suing someone, even though in the US, there's, it's definitely a lot more likely than other countries. But I think they're so stressed. And for him, he was just in November talking about how he was like pumping the brakes and needing to heal because he wasn't healing. I remember even at the red carpet, the premiere, he looked pretty bad. Like he looked like he had gone through something, and I was like, "Is this like just age?" He looked like kind of like his face was sunken in more, and he had like was unshaven, but I'm like, maybe that's a choice. I don't know. I feel like that had to be a choice because he had a stylist. But yeah, he definitely. I think he has like enough of a support system and a very strong, excuse me, strong and great support system. But I think what I worry about is I think he will be okay as a person. Um, it'll take time, one way or another. I think it will take time. I think even a victory will not mm, help that much in the emotional part of his healing journey around this. But I hate to say that in this way, but I'm afraid that he might not continue to do movies because I think we need people like him. And I think a lot about the strength that he needs from a lot of people, not just his support, but all the people like us who like really support him. Kind of like the Britney movement, when people were like just giving strength to this one person that they never met, they might never meet, but recognizing that it was needed. And it goes a long way. I think all of us talking, I don't know if like my live will be seen by him and his team, or like us talking on this chat, on Donna's chat or whatever. Donna probably a lot more. um and his Instagram, I tried to send him an Instagram message a while ago, a few weeks ago, and he had blocked his messages, understandably. um and I think I sent an email to Wayfair. I don't know if that got anywhere, but like just out of support. And maybe it was, like, messy, it was, like, who knows? Like, it was probably crappy. I'm not great. But, like, the more we can do that, we can show up. And honestly, I feel bad I can't do that for Blake at this point because it's just so ugly what we're seeing. But I hope her supporters are doing that for her. I think as a human being, people need this. The public can, like, just trash you as much as they can build you up. So, but yeah, I hope that he continues somehow. He finds the strength in us, in his support system, immediate support system, to keep going because we need people with his point of view, with his like desire to learn and be curious. Um, and yeah. Um, so yeah, one more point. Let me s- catch up with the chat here. Um, I think he completely spent. He looks completely spent. He was saying. I think he said a lot, but still held back. You could hear it and see it. My heart hurt for him. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are awful people. Yeah, yeah, hurt people, and there's definitely a consensus more and more that Blake is highly insecure, and there's nothing more than someone that's insecure, that's not working on themselves, not willing to admit that, and just like he's talking about compensate. I think he's just trying so hard to compensate and to avoid doing the healing work and go around it. And I think that's where this control comes in. She's trying to, like, if I get control of this project, of other projects, of just having control of projects in general, I'll feel better about myself. I will prove to myself and to others that I'm good enough. I think that's where she was coming from with this control. But yeah, it's awful what they're doing. um yeah. Blake wants a delay to submit her amended complaint. Really? Until March 5th. Okay, so like a month. Uh different Marie okay. You're saying it clearly when addressing me. Okay. So the green little bubble avatar, it's Maria? Is that option 1 or Maria option 2? Let me know. Exactly. People think lawsuits are fun. This isn't how to get away with murder. Yeah, yeah, no. Yeah, I have not watched that, but I've heard it's a good show. But yeah, movies, shows glamorize this stuff. They glamorize all of this stuff. I honestly allowed myself to, like, really put myself in that situation, and I felt fear. I would be terrified, no matter if I had Brian Friedman on my side or whoever. And even though there's no jail in this anywhere, but I don't think for SH stuff, I don't think there is, right? Um Not for what she was describing, at least. But yeah, it was yeah. Um Scary to think about. I think it's taking a toll on everyone. People love to yell, sue, sue. Yeah, nothing about the time, resources, emotions, mental stress. Yeah. And people talk so much about money, like, oh, don't sue because it costs a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like exactly what you're saying. There's like the emotions, the mental toll that it takes. You just don't, and the toll it takes on your family and everything, and it become like you also kind of your life, I imagine, stops, because how are you able to concentrate? I think she wants to say something. Or just wants to eat the microphone. You just don't want, yeah, you don't hand off a case to your lawyers. You are a central yeah. um but we can't forget what is wild. Oh yeah, it's crazy stuff. Yeah. Can't forget she started this. That's what yeah, yeah, yeah. Hi Angel, welcome. Um yeah, did I miss something? I feel like I might have missed responding to something. Yeah, sorry. I don't know. Yeah, everyone is talking about, oh, it was yeah, about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. What about Sony Pictures? So I might just do a live. I was going to do like a presentation version of this, of all the, like, the different components, the top players of this, the umbrella of this movie, and how who is in charge of what decisions and all that stuff, from what my understanding is based on my research and my experience. um I might just do the next live tomorrow or so. There's a Forbes interview of her from 2022 where she states she wants full control of projects and go. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if we watched the same video, the same interview. Is you're saying Forbes? I watched a video interview where she says, like, you can't just give me any lines. I'm sorry. It's so ridiculous. Every time I even say that, I can't stop laughing. Maybe I should use this as my happiness daydream for Meisner. It just cracks me up every time as an actress to say, you can't just give me any lines and expect me to, like, deliver them and put me in any clothes. Like, that's exactly what you're expected to do as an actress. If not, don't be an actress and just be a producer and go produce. Go, do your own movies. Yeah. Yeah, she does put her foot in her mouth. Um, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. But yeah, I think it was as far as the extension. I can't believe I wonder if she is asking for an extent, or her team is asking for an extension to amend her complaint because she's not getting the response from these other women that are supposedly um, going to come out according to them. Maybe they're like, I don't want to, Blake. I don't, I changed my mind. I don't want to be a part of this. Um, Jenny Slade was said to probably be one of those people, and yeah, I wonder if that's the delay that they're requesting. um wow, it's late. But yeah, therapists, I think the host sorry, going back to the podcast, I think the host was talking about the therapist being afraid to talk to therapists because it's for crazy people, and men don't talk to therapists. So he called his casual friend, and that's when he talked about like how this casual friend, he didn't call him a casual friend, but he was very honest that he was very anxious today, in that when he called, and he was fighting with his partner and all this stuff. And the host was like, "Oh, so this is the vulnerability thing everyone's talking about." And I love that. It was just so sincere, such a sincere moment of like that light bulb. um and he found himself creating the space that the other guy needed for sharing, which in turn helped the host, again I think his name is Samir, um to be more empathetic with himself, and then this, giving himself permission to also lead with vulnerability the next time. And yeah. Oh my gosh, Dr. Kirk Honda, I remember him talking about like we can't be what we don't see. So modeling, television, and oh my gosh, sorry, it's just so invasive right now. Like she's just like being loving, but it's like so much right now. Um, Television, movies, society, most people, most times we don't get good modeling of good friendships, of vulnerability, like true vulnerability, of relationships, of anything really. It's so important to like have modeling. And so basically this is what happened, and this is what they talked about, is like he got modeling for being a vulnerable man. And therefore he could be that going further. Um but yeah, this whole thing with therapists and men. I mean, I feel like so many people don't like therapists in general, but just reminding myself that, the conversation has been open for a while, and more people will like come to understand that therapy is what you make of it, and that we all need it. And you don't have to have like some crazy stuff. Oh my gosh, I don't. Oh my goodness. That true. 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 But yeah, anyways, but they were also talking about how uh like how do you get a man, or the men who don't even know they want to go deep, to want to be vulnerable. And that's when Justin's like, if I have figured that out, the world would look different. And the way that he does it is never allowing himself to like be in a silo, to be stuck to his own point of view, basically. Always trying to understand and listen to someone else, with a different point of view, in like an open way. We're always willing to have his point of view adjusted, which I know I'm struggling with this. I struggle with this. This is a hard one to do. If you can do this, you have my complete admiration. This is so hard. And this is where like the politics conversations struggle, because we, and not just politics, it just feels like more and more we're like, I need to be right. I need to, for you to believe in my point of view. And I think it comes primarily from feeling, excuse me, not validated in our point of view. I think we need to validate each other's point of views sincerely and empathize, but also be willing to and open to adjust. And that you need trust. You cannot just do that without trust. Um, and I think ultimately you need to trust yourself in order to be able to do that with anyone. But to start off, I think we need to just like learn to trust each other, like to have those like relationships where you trust the person that much. What is she doing right now? um to be able to like feel like it's safe to adjust your point of view if they're saying something. Fudge, please. So fudge. It's like trying so hard. I can feel her like little like legs just like or feet just like shaking because she's like trying to reach so far to like kiss me or whatever. Wee. Joke. Anyways, but yeah, so he talks about having enough humility to know that he doesn't know everything, and he might think that he knows, or give a data point or speak. And I like this because a lot of people have had a hard time with him because of they're like, oh, he's so righteous, he's so full of himself, etc. And he talks exactly to this before people were even having this conversation, talking about how like he might speak like he is on the podcast seeming right or righteous, but like inside he is, what the heck, he is, he has that humility and he is open. This is just I don't, yeah, this has not happened in all these lives so far. Suddenly I'm just being attacked. I'm in birds, but with one bird, the other bird can't fly, so it's just like chilling there. um but yeah, and I can't, it's hard to think, it's hard to think. Da boy, da joke. um but yeah, anyways, what was I saying? Yeah, he can come across righteous, but he's open. I have this. People have thought often that I'm stuck up, or I'm not open to other point of views, or I'm trying to convince others of my point of view. And I was always like, what are they where are they getting this from? What? And I still don't actually fully know the other people's experience of why they experience this from me, except that maybe I'm like outspoken in a maybe more defensive way, because I assume that I need to be louder to be heard, because I for so long wasn't heard. Oh my gosh, and she's like scratching. It's just scratchy. Da, chuku, 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 chuku. Reachable? No, yeah, still not in the mic. Um, but yeah, but I can come off probably very righteous, but I'm so open. And it takes me back to that conversation that I had with my friend, my ex-friend now, on all of this, that she's like, "Well, you already made up your mind about Blake, so you can't be open." I'm like, "No, I can be open at the same time." And this was before that door closed. But even now, like the door hasn't locked, like cuz there we have no 100% proof, right, that the SH stuff didn't happen. And we have, and we've just expanded the conversation. Um but yeah, she didn't understand how could you be both open, humble, or whatever, and also be so sure and like pushing a certain narrative or whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't know. To me, it's like so easy to understand that. I don't know. Uh oh, P, you're a Dr. Kirk fan? I love Dr. Kirk. I don't know if this is entertaining or like annoying. Like it's annoying to me. I can't think. Oh my gosh, this usually happens when I'm not, I'm away from home or whatever, and I come back and she's like all over me, like, where were you? Um, but I've been with her all or all day. Um, but yeah, Dr. Kirk. Yeah, he's awesome. Um, they should have planned for that. They shouldn't have overplayed their hand. Yeah. I felt so bad watching the podcast. He's so real in his emotion. Yeah. Yeah, he was very authentic. I want to hear, all the people that said he's performative and he's all this stuff. I wonder, were they like met with like, whoa, maybe I was wrong? Or are they like still finding things of how he's like just manipulating us all? Um, I think she's jealous of this microphone. She's like, you're giving all your attention to this microphone. Um, yeah, I didn't see your baby and was trying to figure out what on my desk was making the chirping noise. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, hopefully it's not too loud. She's really loud and I'm trying to like keep the microphone away from her. I think they thought Justin would give in and not fight back. Absolutely. That's pretty clear. Yeah. Um wow. Or it's like, come on, who are you talking to? I'm right here on your finger. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What the heck? I might have to end this like early. Um I don't have that much to go actually, but yeah, this is crazy. It's getting crazy. Aru. Um and company are made whole monetarily and reputed. Yeah. 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 I it's hard to know the impact until we'll see it. I don't know if anything can, lessen the impact. Um I'm getting angry on Justin's part. These people are so entitled. Yeah. Yeah. Uh about spiraling. I do that. It sucks. Oh, the other parakeet is out. Oh, hold on. Let me. Oh, okay. I don't know if you guys have seen the other parakeet, number 2. It's like the flock is growing. We're not used to anything right now. But I guess it felt left out. Okay, so just to get through this last bit. Haru, mai. Okay, so then after all of this, but I thought this was just such a beautiful podcast, so I wanted to talk about this. Um all the other stuff, but he finally gets asked about It Ends With Us. And the host is like, speaking of radical vulnerability, there was a lot of vulnerability in the movie you just released. And then Justin lets out a chuckle that I interpreted as, you don't even know, or like, oh boy, was it? you you don't know, not even the half of it. Um, it just seemed like he laughed like you laugh after a traumatic experience. Like, yeah. Um, and then the host says, in particularly in terms of the requirement of men to take an honest look at themselves and how they show up in relationships. And I already talked about this point earlier, um, like a little further on into this point, but I wrote this here. I still don't feel like this came through. And I wonder if this podcast really felt this way. And again, the men on here, please let me know if you've seen the movie, how that came across to you, what you got out of it. I think it's hard also for any of us that have seen the movie after, to have this like pure reaction to it. So maybe that's why I don't see it this strongly. But then the guy says, when Ryle shows up on the screen, his partner, I think girlfriend, um, the host's partner, says, "This everyone has dated this guy. Have you dated this guy?" For the women in here, have you ever dated a Ryle? And not necessarily with the abuse part, but like with the charming, because the host asks, like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, this like very charismatic guy, says the right thing, behaves the way he thinks other men should in a relationship, and then turns out he's insecure, not emotionally regulated. I would say emotionally mature, but I think that's maybe like a weird thing to say. They're like going crazy now. It's like the zoomies for birds. And or somehow compensating something. I want to say it's more than not emotionally regulated, because it's not necessarily, I think what she was talking about in this idea of Ryle is not necessarily, we talked so much around like this, SA stuff, but I think it's yeah, like the bad guy type of idea, or the emotionally unavailable man is like the trend of how we talk about it. And yeah, it's not necessarily that they're not in control of their emotion. They're maybe too in control of their emotion, not vulnerable and stuff. But yeah, like the playing this game of what they should be, how relationships should work. I felt this in my relationships where like a guy does things as, that's loud, does things as, you know, that they think you want them to do, or that, this is what one should do in a relationship, but not from the heart. They don't actually go deep and understand why people do that, or why they should do that. And that's what I was like kind of getting from that. Sorry, kind of gross. Oh, poop happened. And so yeah, Angel, Angel. I haven't watched it, didn't see the film. Okay, so all right. But yeah, I'm curious if this was like this guy's understanding because of the work he's done, the podcast he has, maybe having talked with Justin before, or understanding where Justin was coming from, or was it truly what he got from it? I don't know. I just didn't get any of this. I don't know. I was watching it with other eyes, I guess. Um, and then he asked a question that I feel like Justin someone answered. And I think part of it was because he was in a not optimal state, that he wasn't answering the best way, I guess. But he says, how do you go from being Justin Baldoni, that would, this host has said, to that he knows him to be, to play a character that seems so radically different than who he is at his core, um, the character being Ryle. And Justin said, well, removing the abuse part, he is very much like, he has been that person in his 20s, and that's when he talks about his like two relationships, and um putting on this like facade that you as a man need, you are taught, told, perceived that you need to be. Okay, he's safe. And then he says like the abuse part, like that's unforgivable and there's no excuse, and no amount of I'm sorry will fix it or undo it, and he deserved to lose his family. And I thought that was like a bold statement. Um and kind of against the empathy that he was talking about towards the men that he wants to move, to change, to do differently. But anyways, um, but yeah, outside of that, Justin says that he's been that guy. He's put on that mask in his 20s. His first relationship was emotionally abusive, ending in cheating and infidelity. His second also ended that way. Until then, he like did this turn that I was talking about earlier, and then he met Emily, and Otto's taking over the microphone. And he was trying to impress, put on a show. That guy that got the girl, the girl's hot. How did he get the girl? What was he doing? What was he saying? How did he talk? Let me talk like him. Let me dress like him. All this stuff. And then he talks about like, in part, wanting to fit in is, wanting to not be hurt, wanting to be loved, to be accepted, but also to not be bullied. Oh, we're getting like really aggressive here. Oh my gosh. Um And this was an interesting analogy or metaphor that was like pretty, it's kind of painful to hear. Um, the most expensive admission to any club in the world is this, like the man card, having this man card and not giving that up, because it requires men to give up who they are in order to keep this admission. And of course, that's relatable to everyone. Um, but yeah, I love that conversation being opened. Like, what are you losing for what you're gaining? If you're like holding on to this, I feel like it's interesting to see Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, these guys that I'm pretty sure were not popular in their high school days. Maybe they were even bullied. I don't know, but they were, I think we can all agree Elon is a genius in his own way, in his whatever he's doing. And people that are geniuses, they're quirky, they have things that are not going to get you on the popularity place. And so like, but now they find themselves in this like the man club, they're the cool ones, for a number of reasons. But like holding on to this man card, um it's, yeah, I love how he put it, like it's hurting. It's hurting the men. I don't know what she's trying to do. Maybe she's like, Arena, it's late. Um, and then it requires to give up who we are, willing to hurt people, hurt ourselves, keep secrets, lie, steal, cheat, and many situations kill, to keep this admission, to this club that doesn't benefit us at all. Instead, uh, we should go inward to what do we like? What music do we like? What would we want to say? Do Who would we want to date? Why and all that stuff. I'm kind of adding a little bit more to his words. And he watches how his son's natural joy gets like stripped away when he goes to school, and for in whatever way these other boys are kind of showing him, telling him, bullying him, whatever, to kind of show, hey, who you are, what you like is not okay. It's faulty in one way or another. Like that's not enough, or so that's like, it's heavy. It was a heavy moment. This is where it really gets like heavy. I'm gonna try to put her inside the cage because this is like a lot, but she probably won't want to. It's like all over. Hi, Pui. Entra aí. Hi, Pui. Yeah, no, okay. Well, just a little bit to go, and then just gotta get through it. But yeah, this is where it got like really heartfelt and heavy. It was all heartfelt, but yeah. And then hold on. He talks about like, if thinking like in terms of, if no other men existed, what would we do? How would we act? What would we listen to? Would we dance? Would we be silly goofballs, watch romantic comedies, and then, or movies? And then the host says, would we cry? And um I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. So many of us don't cry and are ashamed, even as women. Like, we're ashamed to watch romantic movies. Like, we kind of downplay it. Like, yeah, or like we watch our little like housewives of whatever. And like, how many things do we downplay that we secretly, it brings us something, some joy, some relief, some comfort, something. I've learned some really nice, like, I've grown through watching The Housewives and 90 Day Fiance. 90 Day Fiance especially, but also watching Dr. Kirk Honda simultaneously. I've learned so much. It's made me such a better human. I've discovered things about myself and about relationships, like especially friendships that I would have probably never discovered or thought of in that way if I wouldn't have watched 90 Days in conjunction, right? That's the word. Like at the same time, with Dr. Kirkhana explaining and showing and like, oh, this is what's happening. And like, oh, and if I instead would have watched like Pillow Talk, where people are just basically bullies and like laughing at the people on the show, or just having like more ignorant take on things. So yeah, I think, and then I kind of started seeing all of these through that eye, and sometimes it brings me comfort to just see like other people's relationship, like, oh, I have empathy for them, or I have empathy for my relationship suddenly because I see how it looks from the outside, in these other relationships. But yeah, like I think this is such an important message overall. um but also it's I think, I don't know if this is like where Donna was like kind of relating, um is this the pain point that Ryan Reynolds had, you know, and this, like, I don't know if it started with Donna or someone else. The idea circulating that, I think my friend texted me this one day, that you know Justin maybe was talking to Blake, and she was like waking up to how her own marriage wasn't perfect, and there were some issues there, and she was maybe confronting Ryan, or like he felt like she was kind of maybe slipping into like more like a different way of seeing things or whatever. And so that's why he was like taking control again. I don't know. I still feel so far at the end of the day, but because especially this is what we've seen, and I'm going off the proof that we have. I'm not trying my best to not make up more things, but based on the proof that we have, I'm only seeing that Blake wanted control. There's a history of her saying exactly that. She needs control for her roles. Like, she's not just an actress, she needs to be the producer as well. And it just, like, everything that we've seen has been around that. I don't, right now, still don't feel like it was a Ryan problem. That was maybe a Jason, like a satellite problem, but I don't think that's why it happened. I will say though that it is interesting that the list of 17, points, Hui, the list of 17 points and all this stuff came after she was with Ryan in England, I think, right? For like an extended period of time because of the strikes. And so something was influenced from that side. I still feel like it was more like Blake's ambition, like her insecurity that she needed to compensate for. And she needed to like go around instead of going to therapy. I've talked about this in my Taylor Swift, like early Taylor Swift video. Like, I think that's why Taylor and Selena kind of distance themselves, because Taylor also, I don't feel like, has gone to therapy. And then she found this ally in Blake who also doesn't seem like she goes to therapy. And maybe they go to therapy. Not all therapists are good either. But, they both seem like they're not really doing the hard work on themselves, whereas Selena Gomez has had to do a lot of work on herself and has chosen to. She didn't have to, I guess. And the way that she talks and carries herself, and like, she literally fought for a bill regarding mental health in school, and like, teaching about emotion and stuff further along. I forget exactly what it was. Um, and so I think that's where like the distancing happened. And to me, it kind of shows a little bit about Taylor and Blake and these like mean girls kind of spirit, or it's really just ignorance of women that are kind of acting very girlish, very, like, before you learn so much and gain wisdom, and you're just like trying to strong arm, I don't know, and go around your issues. As if, like, if you get all the men to apologize to you and you take over projects, and you gain the right to your masters and change the system, and all this stuff, like that is going to heal the things that you have inside to heal, the insecurity, the insufficiency that you feel inside about yourself. No amount of that will work. And you criticizing men who use that same tactic to correct their insufficiency and the things that they are not healing inside themselves, and using that yourself, is not making the world better. It's like you're becoming that same person that you're criticizing, and you're avoiding the work that you need to do. um and attacking a man who's done so much work, and he's still a work in progress and still has a lot of work to do. But yeah, um this sorry, that completely deviated from this admission to this club that's like the most expensive because you lose yourself. And instead of, you should go in. Justin has been Ryle, he says, charismatic, that didn't give a poop. It's the word I used. He definitely did not use poop. He used the real word. And then he said that he'd meet a woman when he was single, play that game, like don't text her, because then he'd be showing that he liked her if he texted her. And then she would lose interest. And I've been guilty of that. Oh boy. I'm 100% have been guilty of, like, I've not played the game and it got me in trouble because I was the only one not playing the game, and that didn't work. Um but I also I've felt this absolutely, like, don't, I remember going on a walk with when I was like dating my partner, and I remember so many months and maybe years that I would not grab his hand because, like, oh, he'll know that I like him. And even though my brain was like, he literally asked you to go on a walk. He's literally asked you to be together and have this date or whatever. And he's literally like taking your hand other times, or, like, I remember like one time with someone else, another guy, like years ago. We're like making out, and I remember like, oh, I can't kiss him because then it'll show him that I like him. And I was like, but he literally was just kissing you. Like, so I get so related to this part. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. But yeah, we don't want to get hurt. And some people do play games, and we're, it's all over the place. And I've heard stories from the men's perspective of this playing game, and I didn't understand. I absolutely had judgment on, like, why would you want to have a rule book, and why do you care that this guy got, this girl, or that it's a numbers game, and the more girls you ask, one will like say yes and all this stuff. Like, just be yourself. I still don't understand that. I still can't relate to that, I should say. um but yeah, that's, I guess, what he's kind of talking about, like playing that game, all that stuff, and not being your true self, but just putting on some sort of persona. And yeah, gosh, I don't understand that. I've never understood that. Like, why do you need to get a girl? Like, why can't you just be happy with, like, whatever you're doing and let that come to you, or go on dates and stuff? But like, I don't understand that. And it's not because, like, I had all these guys, courting me or asking me. I didn't. I absolutely didn't. I really felt like I've never had a guy ask me out until like college, I think, maybe. I never had a boyfriend into college, and that was like a weird one, anyways. So, and I keep saying, like, my first real boyfriend has been my partner, because up to that, it was like these situationships and dating, like, just weird, and just going on dates. But I still never felt like and I wanted to be with someone, and but I don't know. But to see that lens of a guy, that perspective of like you need to like ask, to go around, and it's there's so much talk about like what works for other men that Justin like brought up too, that like I just can never relate to, but I can, I guess, understand more from like my partner having talked to me about it like through the years, and understanding, gaining this perspective from this other gender, and learning to have empathy and not judgment, because I 100% was just judging at first when I would hear this stuff. And yeah, like and he does talk about this, like, actually, I think right now. Um, yeah, find himself suffering privately, but play the game. But he talks about like the turnoff, yes. Um, for a lot of women, the turnoff, or some women, if they sense any sort of weakness or insecurity in the man. And again, question to everyone: have you felt this way? Like this bad guy, versus like a good guy, because they're like the bad guy seems secure and the good guy doesn't seem secure, or seems weak versus strong. I've not found this in myself. I've not seen it that way. And I thought more women were like that than not. But when I hear men talk about it, it seems like I'm in the minority. And the majority of women are kind of, I would call it objectifying men, like for their protective status, for their strength, for their looks, or whatever. Um, but yeah, yeah, this was also like an interesting one for me. It's not new. I've heard of this. And yeah, I know about this, but like it still like stood out a little bit right now in this podcast context. um yeah, he talks about bell hooks, a will to change. We all have been conditioned to a society to have internalized misogyny, men and women. I wish my ex-friend would hear that part, because that's what she was trying to use against me, as to why like I shouldn't support him and I should support Blake Lively, because I was like internalized misogynist. That's why I was supporting him and not her. I was like, no. um but yeah, I think there was like, I have to catch up on the chat in a second. Almost at the end, almost at the end. But I think I opened the branch, went on a branch, and then I just left it. I stopped that branch short. I don't know. But then they talk about, men will say, this is why I can't show my true self. And Justin says to that, you gotta do it anyways, because nothing will ever change if we wait for the other sex or other party to give us permission. And I love that he used that term instead of gender, but I don't. I'm not courageous enough with YouTube policies to use that, because they'll say like I'm talking about something else, but technically that's the correct term instead of gender. But yeah, if we allow ourselves to be heard, um to be hurt, to be left, to be cheated on, to be abandoned. So we don't abandon ourselves. The reward is freedom, the dark night of the soul. My partner would know that. He's talked about that. I don't remember what that is. Um, and I was like, ooh, he'd like that. He'd be interested in that. He didn't want to abandon himself anymore. And this is like that point that, it made him kind of change, um, before Emily came into the picture, or like around that time. And he didn't want to abandon himself anymore for the other person to love him. If that person thought that he was too much, that he loved too big, that he showed his cards when he shouldn't, or whatever, instead play the game, that person's got work to do. And it's not his job to fix that person. I thought, radical love for himself. And I mean, that's how things change. But I say radical because it's so courageous. It's so scary to do. It is so hard to do, and especially if you like love someone and you see that and it's so hard and they're just unwilling to like see that in themselves. I have that with like family members especially, and it's like the idea that they adopt like, "Oh, I'm too old to change," or, "Nothing's wrong with me," and just, like, getting stuck in that is just it breaks my heart because there's so much time lost that I can't even get through to them, and I don't know how, and I will admit and confess here on this, like, live, um, I'm very shut down. I think as a whole, I've entered a space in the last few months, and that's why I also lost that friendship too, because I was just exactly this. I was kind of unwilling to sacrifice myself to keep the peace. I've never been good at that, ever, at all. I am terrible at that. I'm not good at keeping the peace, whether it's sacrificing myself or just mildly inconveniencing. I will stand by my point of view or truth or whatever, and I will be open, to that perspective being different and challenged and stuff. But I will stick to it, and I won't choose to avoid. I'm not like a conflict avoidant. I'm a fearful avoidance. So we love conflict because we're like, this is where you grow. Like conflict, welcome it. Because in conflict is where you like learn something about yourself, learn something about the other person, learn something about the world. You grow in conflict. You grow in that. So yeah, so we love that. But a lot of people in my life are not that. And but yeah, I've shut down from trying to make it work. And I feel like a terrible person, honestly, because I've never been like the person to lose myself for it. That's like the anxious attachment kind of thing, like where you truly like will sacrifice yourself fully. I come back and I fight back at times, but at the same time, I'm just like, yeah, I feel bad. I feel like a bad person for um thinking badly or just like not trying with people, especially with my family. But it's like I've not gotten to the point where I found a way to connect with them, and I just feel like there's so much resistance that it's just like a one way try, um, kind of with everyone in my life, and so like it's yeah, it's just I just put me in a shut down place. So yeah, little like inside confession, just personal moment there. Um yeah, it just like it just makes me feel like such a terrible person. So that's why I'm saying like this takes so much strength when you're going from any type of people pleasing or like trying to work with people and meet them, and not have so much boundary, um, and be understanding. And then you get people that might not understand how to respect your boundaries or whatever. And you have to like make that choice. And I don't know. Yeah. I just feel like a bad person. But yeah, I wanted to say something earlier around that turn off if they sense weakness. I don't remember. That was a big one too. I bolded. I made it bold. Um, Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe I'll mention it if I remember it in another one. But I do think that's such an interesting like perspective, though. That again, I just can't really relate to. So that was like the end of us, or it ends with us. The end of us. It ends with us like part. Then talks a little bit about his father for his 40th birthday. He and 11 of his friends, men, and his father included, they had this like retreat, and he ended up forgiving his dad for not showing up in the way that he needed. and understanding that he did his best, but also because his dad was able to hold that space when he like let him have it, let him have everything that he was like holding on, the resentment and all the stuff that he was holding on to. And I think that's, I remember super side note. But this is, I mean, by now I feel like, this is just how my brain works. Frasier. Has anyone seen Frasier? There was an episode where Niles and Daphne had finally gotten together. I think they got married at that point. Maybe not. I don't remember. Um, and I think it was after she gave birth, so she had lost weight because they put it, whatever, details not important. Anyways, but I mean, they're kind of important because the idea was like they finally, she was so afraid to let him down because it felt like he had built this perfect image of her, like she could do no wrong. And when they finally like hated each other, where they were finally like, hated this about you, I hate this about you. That's when they found the passion and they actually came together more. And this, it reminded me of this moment because it's like there's no way but through. You can't go around resentment. You can't go around the issues that you have to heal. You can't go around it. There's only the way through. And so, what I heard him say, at least, like told his dad everything that he was still holding on to, that was still like weighing on him, that resentments he had, etc. And his dad was able to, he says here, I gave it to him all and he held it. And his dad said, "I'm so sorry. I did the best I could, but I'm so sorry." And he was talking about how not only did that heal him and his relationship with his dad, and at that point, I think they had already kind of done some work already, or been, um, but it also healed the men in that room and their relationship with their dads that had passed away or just weren't going to get to this point maybe. And he's talked about many men will not get this healing moment that he had and his friends had in that moment, seeing them, because their dads are gone or just can't go there. Um but yeah, it was, he got that and they got that. And even talking on this podcast, he hopes like that kind of spreads, that the things, the words, the sorries, the stuff that you never might hear or never get to hear, and the understanding that you don't realize the other person has. um Maybe like it'll help hearing that someone else went through that and held that. But I thought that was so beautiful that his dad, I don't know, my dad probably will never get there. I don't think my dad even gets close to understanding how he's hurt me. Um and my family, like I said, like they're of the generation, and I'm not able to be, you know further along in my path to be able to have these conversations with them where it opens this healing. So yeah, I kind of, I'll take that a little bit. Maybe I'll rewatch that, and maybe I'll let that sink in for me. Just live cathartically through him, through his experience with his dad. Um, but yeah, but he's talked in other times how there was so much that his dad taught him to be a wonderful man as well. And yeah, but we all have. I love that. Like he also says we're so flawed. That's not the version of us going through. There's no version of us going through this life and being anywhere near perfect. And yeah, like we're all flawed. And the resistance of admitting that keeps us hurting ourselves and others. He doesn't say this part. This last part I add I added to it. Um and also just it hurts us to expect perfection from others, is more what he was going for. um and then talked about how we are longing to be held, be accepted, loved for who we are. We need to make room for the sensitive, empathetic, compassionate, insecure, kind, fragile parts of us that just needed to be loved and seen for who we are. I think I teared up at this point. I teared up a couple of times at the time when I was watching this. Um, and then what are we doing with our, oh yeah, this just a life lesson, and this is the end of this. But the life lesson that he kind of put out there, that I think we all should think about. And I think a lot of us are starting to think about more and more as like everyone in society. What are we doing with our time? Where are we spending it? Are we happy? Are we joyful? Are we living our purpose? Are we doing what we want to do with our lives? And I thought this was such a wonderful one. If we don't, he says, if we don't ask ourselves these things, we cannot be the men we need to be in this world because we don't know ourselves. We're zombies, we're cogs in a machine, we're grinding and hustling, breaking our bodies, I think he said, which was just a little random. And we're not able to like do anything or be anything for ourselves even. And then he brought up this word in Arabic for human, insan, and I guess it translates kind of to they who forget. As human beings, we forget everything. We forget our joys, we forget our struggles, we forget pain. I remember learning about like we need to forget pain, otherwise we'll never go back to the dentist or the doctor or like anywhere. Like, so it's like in us, literally created in us to forget pain, but we also forget joys. Our memories are so changed and different based on what our current experience is. And that's something important to keep in mind. And that's why, like, on trial, like, memories are not enough. Because memory can be altered based on how you're feeling in that moment, based on the things that you're seeing after, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah. And then the last thing, young Justin advice. He was asked by the host what would be advice that he would give himself as the young Justin. And he said, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. And then he talked about the wound is where the light enters you. But yeah, that's a wonderful, beautiful way to end this and that podcast too, because um I can I feel this. I have not found unconditional love. For all the people that care about me, they care about me, but I can't say that I found that in myself for others or from others to me. I've not seen unconditional love, to be honest. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love listening to a lot of um his stuff. And that first video of him with like a few men around this table, I think they talk about this unconditional love part too. um and that is just such a foreign thing for us. Every day we have expectations for others, and we feel even for ourselves, I don't think we can even unconditionally love ourselves most of the time. And it would be wonderful to get to a place where I can really like believe this. I know it, but I don't believe it, that you don't have to be perfect to be loved. And I think a lot of the struggle on, if you want to do anything in the social aspect, well, I mean everywhere, but like with YouTube, I've been every time so hard on myself when I was doing my vlogging, when I was doing like videos, and then I started doing the live. And I remember the live was so stressful doing lives because I was like, I don't want to waste people's time, and I'm not perfect. I don't have, I couldn't for the longest time, I couldn't even dare to share the screen, like pull up, references. And how do I do that? And I'm not perfect at this. And um Yeah, and he talks a bit about that, I think, at one point too, like how to like go past that. But um I guess I don't have that here. Um but yeah. Um there were a couple of other things, but I'll leave that for tomorrow as far as like the Super Bowl and whatever. I want to like catch up on the chat, but as I'm catching up on the chat, I want to leave the replays and um bookend this whole conversation with this reflection moment that came after. What change have you gone through in yourself through following this Hollywood saga, this Hollywood drama between these two Hollywood celebrities, or three or more? Like, when you're sitting down, and this is not like, oh, you have to answer this now, but or ever to me, but to yourself, like, wait, how has this changed you? Like, seeing, we got introduced, even though I knew of Justin and I follow some, but I'm still introduced to a lot of his thoughts and ways to like say things and look at things. And I feel like I've grown so much. When this blew up, I was in a very deep depression, um in a state where, and it was not so much relational, but it was more like I had lost myself, but in the sense of like I kind of knew who I was, but I just couldn't attach to that. And it was so far away, I couldn't even remember it. So it was more like this disconnection for myself. And I kind of wrote something around here. What did I write it as? I don't know. But anyway, so um yeah, I I was just like so far from like any purpose, any direction. Oh, I wrote I was severed from myself. Yeah, not so much lost, but potato. And I know this has meant so much to me to find my way back to the things that have mattered to me, and to see that people are out there that also find this, valuable. And I'm not even talking about like what we do on YouTube as like YouTubers or whatever, but him, honestly, like, it brought me back to watching, his podcast or whatever, and seeing that change can happen even when it's like challenged, and it leads to like lawsuits, and leads to like really terrible reputational damage, or claims that could damage the reputation. And um he's lost so much, but he's done so much, before this point, and I hope he comes back to that. Um but in the last month or two, not only, I'm still going through a hard time, and I'm still lost and all this stuff, but I'm nowhere near what I was. And I feel like I've grown. I don't think that I can even answer this question right now, mostly because I'm like just like stressed, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to waste time, with dead air, silence. And maybe I'll grow into that, being comfortable with that. But I think it's also just a huge question. But I know that I've changed a lot from watching this. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot in my knowledge and understanding of like being human and of society and stuff. So yeah. And I'll catch up with the chat. So for anyone who doesn't want to be there for that, um, that I just wanted to like again book and that. Um Yeah, so cute. I'm like way back. My parakeet, yeah, cute and just crazy today. Instantly fell asleep. Like she just flew over there and she's like sleeping. Um, yeah. Um, Where was I? Where did I leave off? Yeah, they don't realize they're just human beings with talent. They are so entitled. Maria was saying they're not above anybody. Yeah, I haven't watched it. Didn't see the film. Yeah, it's just that disjointed, in my opinion. It's not his version. Yeah, JB was the most believable. Young Lily wasn't bad. Um, I think Isabella was like awesome. I want to see more of her. Maybe, sometimes people are awesome because of the editing, the directing, the role fitting them or something. But I think from what I heard, like she does her homework. I think she's really good. Um, Never heard if Justin until of Justin until this lawsuit. Arnaldo says interested in on how it will turn out. Yeah, that alone, talking about how what change have you gone through in yourself through following this. Maybe not yourself, but definitely like a lot of people have found. Again, the beautiful, sad part of how it became beautiful, but the beautiful part of this is that so many more ears and eyes are on him, and thankfully he has such a strong platform on what he already had built that you know if people go and look for him, they'll be met with these like little morsels and tidbits of philosophy that I think will like get in their minds and food for thoughts. um I have never seen a bird work so hard for attention before. Yeah, I've never seen that either. Like that was the first. Like I said, when I'm not here for like a day or two, and um, she kind of does that, but never that much. Yeah, she was working really hard, and she like even bit me at one point because like I don't know, she was crazy. I think it was the bird zoomies. Um, yeah, P. That's what I was saying too. Um, he feels there's no coming back from physically abusing your partner. It's hard a redemption arc for Ryle or Ryle times. Yeah, I think that's a whole story, but I think we're not there yet as the society. I think there's a middle piece that gets to that. I think there's always redemption, but it does need to be earned. Like you can't just be like forgiven or you know like you need to work, you need to heal, you need to not do the bad stuff, and that can be a lifelong thing. I don't know. So I think I understand what he was going for, but I what I was thinking was like, well, if you want empathy, and he's speaking about empathy for these men, I think is like when you're feeling validated for your hurt, not for what your actions are, but for your hurt. If I don't know. Maybe, yeah. Like I said, sometimes, yeah, we do need to lose everything to, and he said, in order to change. And sometimes we just can't do that before we lose everything. But yeah, yeah, it's a hard conversation. It's a nuanced conversation that we're not. I just don't feel like we're ready as a society to truly have as nuanced as it is. Um, I was told that the editing is bad. I haven't seen the film. My daughter saw it and she was confused. She thought it was presented like a rom com. Yeah. Uh, um. Um. Yeah. Did you see it before knowing all of this drama? Because I think I was influenced, and I didn't know. Obviously, none of us knew all of this. But I was influenced because I had heard at that time like the he didn't get his cut. Or no, it was before I heard that, because I remember, like, I don't know whose cut this is, like, I don't wanna I felt bad because I didn't like the movie, and, I felt like it was just, did you say disjointed or someone said disjointed or excuse me, I'm saying disjointed. It was just like two stories, and it had an identity crisis. People have said that. I felt that way, but maybe because I had a little bit of inclination that it was just not, the best of times in the behind the scenes. But yeah, I wouldn't say the editing was bad. I don't think it was a terrible movie. It was definitely not a terrible movie. I felt like 50 Shades of Grey, the first movie. I remember watching, I'm like, is this the directing, the acting, or the editing? Because it was like when they're in the office, for anyone who's seen that, like she goes to his office. I don't know, she sits down. I don't even remember what the scene was about. But I was like, what sucks? Which one of those things suck? The lighting wasn't bad. The cinematography wasn't bad. So like it was like somewhere in something was just bad. I don't know if it was the editing, the directing, or the acting. It felt like the acting, but I felt like it wasn't the acting. Um on Jamie Dornan or whatever his name is. I liked him in other things afterwards. I've seen him, but so I don't think it was the acting. I think it was directing or editing. So I don't think it was that bad. I think it was okay. It just didn't seem like it had a direction or like it had it wasn't substantial in one direction or another. That was my take, but everyone has had a different experience. Some people actually loved the movie. Um Bethany Frankel, who has had apparently similar experiences or like past in her family, she said that it was relatable to her and it was a good movie. So I don't know, it was like all over the place. um yeah. I just kind of refreshed. Shoot. um yeah. Oh yeah, what age is your daughter? Version was 80 something percent for ages 35 and under. Yeah, it was like I think their target age was like early mid 30s, I want to say. Or like the 30s somewhere. Jersey Flaw posted a video where she showed interviews from a while ago where Blake Lively said that she goes into films with the intent on inserting herself and making change, but doesn't tell them before. Huh, I haven't seen that. Is that a new video? Um, I haven't seen that one. Maybe I missed that one. I'll go back and see. I loved like her video on like the Critics' Choice Awards. I thought it was great. Kind of how she mentioned like everyone was laughing. I mentioned this yesterday. Like it's interesting because no one laughed at the Ariana Grande joke with the Munchkin. Because I thought that was like really I didn't think that was great. I thought that was highly inappropriate. And I can understand why people might think that joking about Blake and Justin would be inappropriate, except at this point, we've not seen anything that would make it so. Um yeah, but yeah. I have to watch that though. I was doing my homework on Jennifer Lopez, and I'll talk about it in the next one. And everywhere you go, you just like hear how professional she is, and like how many actors expect her to be not professional. Like, oh, she's Jennifer Lopez. She'll be a diva, or she'll be like bad actress, or she's not gonna be prepared, whatever. And the biggest thing that people say consistently about her is like she's so prepared. And in my class today, in my Meisner class, we talked about Anora, and I have to watch that. Although I'm not looking forward to it based on like what they were saying the first half of it is, or 30 minutes. But yeah, how much preparation Mikey, I think the actress's name, she did. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And Blake for sure. Like she wants to change the script for how she wants it. She wants to change the outfits for what she wants the character to be. And I feel like it's more than producing at that point. I think it's more than just being a producer, because when you're being a producer, I think you're making choices. If you're not letting the director make the choices and the appropriate departments, but you're making choices or you're challenging choices for the purpose of the movie, for the purpose of the message. And I think Blake is doing it for the purpose of her style, her preferences. I might be wrong though. Um okay, so 20 something. They also said more men liked her version than JB. Yeah, but it wasn't that much. I think it was part 4 or part 3 of me reading the amendment thing. And yeah, and you can just go into the amendment and you can see the score. It wasn't that big of a difference, except for I think in that like target range it was a bigger difference or something. But yeah, even for the men it was a little bit different. I don't think it was that much. um I'm curious what the all the cuts were, but yeah, I just got offended that she used Finding Nemo. And also, like, if you want to be a filmmaker and you are saying like people wouldn't have that much attention to detail to figure out it was like the Finding Nemo, because she specifically said like, oh wow, like people like have so much attention to detail or something. And I was like, yeah, yeah, were you showing it to filmmakers? Because yes, that's what they do. Why don't you have that attention to detail? And what if, like, I don't know, it didn't sit well with me. I got a lot of views on that Finding Nemo short because I extracted the clips, because I felt like they were important to like talk about, and no one was talking about that until they were finally. Um, Bam. They doesn't like to take no for an answer. Just yes, do as you please on my dime. She probably would have like Justin version better. Too bad we will never see it. I don't know if we'll never see it. The men were probably interested in the female actress, not the storyline actresses. Um, I'm so curious why. I'm so curious what she did with that cut, even if I don't think it was a huge change, a huge difference. I'm so curious why the men liked one version other than the other. Hmm. We can suspect, we can like assume, but I'm just curious. Um, I'm still with my high school sweetheart, my soul. Oh, Arnaldo, congratulations. I I will never feel that way. That is amazing. And I feel like I appreciate your story, like your being still married to your soulmate, to your high school sweetheart. I mean, I appreciate that more than I think when I was younger. I thought, oh, that'll just happen. I mean, I didn't even date in high school. Had nothing, but like, yeah, it it moves me when I hear that, because I don't know. I don't know your experience of it. I think it takes so much work that we underestimate as people who are not married or haven't been married. I've always kind of thought like, yeah, hard work, but I always had this idea that it wasn't that hard or whatever. And I just recently realized how I just had such a different view of relationships. I just thought they would happen. And I don't know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, I just, yeah, that's amazing. Um, Angel, I know that will probably be part of the settlement. It will be a special edition vault video. That's what I was going to say. That was in my mind. I was going to say that at the end. Like, I think um, when when I'm 90 years old, yeah, I think if they go to trial and they win, I'm more than certain that a lot of things will come out if that happens, as far as like his version and all the things that we can't see right now before the trial, etc. If they settle, That might be a contingency or whatever they call it. They might like might be a negotiation point for them to never be able to release anything. I don't see them doing that, but because of, me having to clear his name and stuff, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know, though I work with women and never felt like exploring. Feel like she is my perfect man. Oh, yeah. I think voices like yours should be also heard. I just think that we have just a skewed vision. I don't know. I grew up and this was also never the case with everyone in my family and the friends in my family. Like they were married to their spouse and they were married to their spouse and they love their spouse. I've never even seen, there's not been, as far as I know, I don't know, but I've not seen anything but people committed to each other and loving being committed to each other, even if they don't like it. I don't know. It was just like, well, it's a given. We're married. And I don't know. And I see that a lot more from obviously older generations, like people that are over, I would say over 45, over 50 at this point, especially. And then a lot from when I think of, excuse me, those type of relationships, I see that more in like people that came to the US, honestly. Um and I also feel like that's like so crazy because when you're, I know a couple that moved here from Europe and they had, I think, just started dating recently or something, or they just got married or they got married, to come here or something. I don't know, but it was like a very, something was like kind of like that, and they were like, well, we don't even know. We don't even know if like the pandemic hit, like if we'll survive, being so close with each other and like coming here, one worked, one didn't exactly work or whatever. I don't know. And I just feel like it's such a different world than what we see on TV and what we hear that is normal on social media. But then when I see in the real world, that's not what I see. Except when I interact with people that are around my age, like 30s, 20s, maybe even like early 40s, maybe, but more so like 30s and under. And when I see these generations, these like 30s and 20s generations, I see just people who haven't even gotten to the marriage part, or like just easily quit, kind of, but, like, I don't even wanna say that because it's more like they don't find their groove, or they don't, I don't know. So that's, like, beautiful, um, and it's something that I just feel like it's just so unheard of, like, and that's why we get people like, of course he cheated, or like, of course, even with Blake, like, of course you wanted to be with someone else than Ryan. And I see that they are, Blake and Ryan, I see them as together. And maybe that's like what I was just saying. Like maybe it's my bias with the relationships that I've seen, but I see them loving each other and being committed to each other and not wanting. And I understand she has this history of like crushing on your stars and stuff. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. And I see them just really loving each other. Are they perfect? I don't think so. And I think, yes, it seems like Ryan Reynolds is controlling. He has his issues. She has her issues. I don't know that they are like blissfully happy and like super like household, but I think that's different. That's a different conversation. So, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying. I just feel like, yeah, more of those voices, especially of like men, like I'm not even looking at someone else. And normalizing that, which is, I feel like, more normal than what we do normalize. But that's maybe just me looking on the like glass half full and believing the best in people. I don't know. There's just why is cynicism winning? I don't know. I just feel suspicious of that. Why are we like more likely to believe that men don't love their wives and that they can't even love someone like Arnaldo you're talking about, and Justin talks about Emily, and like this commitment that's not just commitment because you have to on paper or whatever, and it's like a responsibility, but because you want to, because it's like love. And yeah, I don't know, sorry, I'm like going off into something else. Yeah. Who do you think this chaos will end up with? I mean, who would settle, or what the jury would lean to? Your opinion, if you care. Um, I was just talking about the cynical stuff. The cynical me says that they will settle soon, like by summer or during the summer, and I don't know that we can know like who initiates. I mean, if they settle, they settle. They both agree on something. Um, I just don't. The cynical me doesn't think this will go to trial. Not because people are saying that, like the TMZ guy, who I didn't know he was a lawyer. But that's what he said on that first episode of his podcast. Um, the hopeful me, and this sounds weird to use the word hopeful, like my ideal, what I hope happens, for a number of reasons, and no offense, but Justin being the least as a person, but more so like for the development of us as a better society. Not that I don't care about him as a human being, and I care about Blake as a human being and all that stuff. But I think what would be best for humanity at this point, in my opinion, is that they go to trial and Justin wins. And he doesn't win because like of like they didn't put a smiley face, but he wins because of real evidence of distorted allegations of SH. and and I don't think that will set women back and believe all women back. I think it'll maybe get a little bit more of the nuance for us to be more critical thinkers and not just believe all women, or not believe all women just by default because they're a woman. And I personally don't think this will set that back. But I think, yeah, it would be wonderful if he wins, like for real, clear reasons, and it will be, in this like ideal scenario, in my opinion, my ideal scenario, it will be like a celebration. And um I think I want that for him to feel the support of the people that support him, and to feel that sigh of relief, um and to have more chances of recovering his reputation and his emotional self and everything, um and be able to do the movies that I think he's made to do. He's like brought on this planet to do, I guess. And the things that he is. And as a humanity point, like I said, with like I don't think it'll set the movement of believe all women back, back, but I think it'll help it be more honest. And I think it also, through these conversations, it'll continue to create change through people like looking at themselves. What am I distorted by in me that is seeing this the way that I'm seeing this? On both sides, because I think there's some people on Justin's side that are on Justin's side from a distorted lens, not from like, oh, this is the evidence. Um, and because of the particularities of who Justin is and what he's been doing, I think that's what's being brought up. And that's my hope, that'll be brought up. And if he wins, um, I think it'll be even more of an oomph, like more powerful um, energy or whatever into that direction for people to look at themselves and start creating the healing in themselves and for themselves and for the people around them and for the world. And I think it'll have impact on politics too, not because of like how people would talk about it now, but if you're doing the healing work, you're less manipulated by any side, either side, all the sides. You understand critical thinking a little bit more. You create this understanding of what community is, and just there would be more honesty, I think. I don't know, that's like my honest answer, but it's like really like philosophical and big, ambitious. But that's what I believe. I don't know. So yeah, but my cynical self is like, yeah, they'll settle this summer, unfortunately. I know that sounds like insensitive too, like to say unfortunately, but like, I think it would probably be easier for all of them, less time around this, less money waste or not, yeah, wasted and not earned and all that stuff. But um I don't know. And it's so crazy to think this traumatizing event for JB is opening up a discussion of healing for so many. Exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, it is crazy, but it's so awesome. It's so beautiful. I'm so happy to see this. Um, that part of it, Yeah. Uh, Luz or corazon if the bird is a girl, and volans for a boy. I've not heard of that name, volans. Oh, I'm not connected to the new one, to the new parakeet. Right now, I call it blue. I don't even know if it's a girl or boy. Um, Aru means it's like Egyptian something. I don't know. It's like an Egyptian god. I just went behind the name and I found this, and it means something with not peace because my name means peace. So I didn't want to be like that, but um, oh, not behind the scenes, behind the name. But I would love, yeah, suggestions. But yeah, I'm not connected. Like Lusa and Corazon sounds so nice. I'm not connected to that second one yet. I still feel like, who are you? Who are you intruding here on my other parakeet? Oh, it's also a Hindu name, Aru. Include meaning love, sun, soul. Yeah, it's like Egyptian heavenly paradise. Um, it's a plant in India. I don't remember why I chose it. Chose it. Yeah. None of these like speak out, but anyways. Um, and then yeah, we were Team Blake before, so she wanted to like it. Um, I think he's insecure, or yeah, he probably cheated and has issues with trust. Ryan. Um, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Why am I having such a hard time not feeling that I'm ignoring the evidence, I guess, in that sense? Because there is evidence where Ryan was jealous, but I don't know. I don't know. He definitely had like some crossover for sure with Blake and Scarlett, that people say no there wasn't, but yeah, there was. They filmed in the same time, even if it was emotional connection, like, oh, I like her, I'm attracted to her, I love talking to her, and it wasn't like physical cheating or even like emotional cheating technically, 'cause, but there was some sort of connection, and then suddenly they're divorcing. Like, I think they ended in August, and then they were divorcing or separated in December, and they ended the movie. So there's definitely that, maybe trust issue, but yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. Everyone like is on board with that. I'm still hesitant with that. But yeah. But thank you for the bird names, the bluebird names. They're sleeping. So I'm gonna go. And thank you so much for like chatting on here. And then why it goes so extreme now with Baldoni if they have been together so long. Um yeah. Yeah. I like what Donna said in that tidbit that I caught where it was less about Blake cheating on him or being having a crush on him, but more so um like Ryan's insecurities. That's what I was saying. Like, I think as a society, the people who are saying Justin is performative or whatever, they're coming from like feeling like they're being attacked kind of because they're not like that, or they feel insufficient, or you know, yeah, there's that projection stuff. Yeah, she's acted with other male actors, right? So I think that's more likely. I can get on board with that. That Ryan just felt like this guy's too good to be true. So, and he's making me look bad, and not even to Blake, but just as a whole. I think, yeah, the fact that he added the nice pool, I think that's where it came from. I don't think it was because of the SH allegations. I think it was. To me, it makes sense that it was from just being insecure that because like think of what the nice bull words were. It was mocking men who are enlightened basically. And I think Jersey Flaw read something, right? About dead or nice bull. Um oh, what was it? Like how it came about. He was supposed to be just like a regular. Oh, 3 hours ago is probably the interview with Blake Lively from Jersey Flaw that you're talking about. Um, Also, how we've all grown. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name exactly correctly. But like we all know now this completely different world, this different name. Um, maybe. Oh wow, that's loud. Um, but yeah, so she was talking about basically he just sounded like Ryan had a lot of resentment for men who were enlightened. And I think the the irony of the women who say that Justin supporters are have internalized misogyny that's making them support Justin. I think the irony is like it's exactly the opposite. Um so yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is what um I'll share the screen. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but in one respect, Nice Pool is everything Deadpool. This is from Jersty's video. Watch that if you haven't. Um, wishes he was. So yeah, and she said that's an interesting way to say it. In one respect, Nice Pool is everything Deadpool wishes he was. So what Ryan wishes he was is what Justin is. Um, you can extrapolate. Easy breezy, gorgeous hair, normal face, gold plated, 50 caliber Desert Eagle pistols. I don't understand that. What is with all of these like pistols and this beautiful suit? But the thing isn't it the same suit? But the thing that Deadpool is most covetous of is, of course, Dogpool. So Nicepool initially just existed to serve the purpose of introducing Dogpool, but then it evolved and grew. The idea of appealed of creating this character based on guys you find in the zeitgeist. Zeitgeist. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word right now. Anyways, right now, who are fall nice, like falsely nice. They may present as very progressive and enlightened. Nicepool himself identifies as a feminist, But the truth is very different. They're talking about themselves as these incredible allies, but underneath that, there's something a little false. Oh, if I'm okay, it doesn't, but okay. Um, there's a little false and probably awful. And this is the narrative that the whole internet and so many women had. Don't trust the feminist. Don't trust the guy that's a feminist. And there is that idea that, weaponizing feminism and all that stuff. But like I just find it just convenient. That's a thing and that's a trend. And that's what he was doing here too. It's like it's interesting that you want to discredit people that are, saying good things. I don't know. Um, Reynolds says that I liked that this guy was kind of paving over. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Over all of this. Is that the F word is supposed to be there? Headery with his esoteric hot yoga chakra balancing nonsense and his little top knot and all that stuff. So we planted the seed early that he's a little fake spiritual, but he also may be kind of a piece of crap. It just allows us to not feel too bad about taking his life brutally. Hmm. Until his bloody demise, everything about Nice Blue was pristine, says costume designer Graham Churchyard. We took Deadpool costume and made every detail as polished as it could be. It's also a lot more armored, particularly on the something in the shoulders. That's interesting. Also, Nice Blue. Why couldn't Dogpool look like a cute dog? No offense if you I don't know. I guess it is offensive for me to say this, but it's an ugly dog. Why? Why did it have what does Ryan Reynolds have against dogs? Nice guys and dogs. Ryan is not a fan of. um yeah, he can't find now that's GB. He can't hide it after writing it in the book, Blinded by Rage. Yeah. Maybe Justin Maine are feel less of a man. Yeah. Um Savages. I haven't watched Savages. But yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I'm pretty sure she's been in movies, and maybe not movies that we've all like seen that much. Like, we remember this movie will be remembered like many movies are not remembered nowadays. Like for the wrong reasons or the right reasons. I don't know, but like yeah. But yeah, she's been although there's like rumors with her and Ben Affleck, but none of anyone else. This is what I wanted to say. Sorry. This was one thing that I wanted to say about like, isn't it interesting? Because Taylor Swift is like distancing herself. But isn't it interesting that because I also remember reading about her and Ronin Farrow and right, that's his name. And I remember reading that and it's all gone. Like I even Googled and I remember for sure there was like some article with Taylor or about Taylor that he wrote or some and it was like I can't find anything now. And if she had the power to erase the internet that way, two things. One, as far as the Super Bowl and NFL games, not the Super Bowl, but NFL games, because she was like, "Oh, I can't control, that they show me, blah blah." If she had the power to erase the internet, she had the power to control the NFL. But she didn't because it would probably like cost her like it was probably money for her, and the NFL was a money for everyone around. Um, and two, is she trying to do that with this distancing? Suddenly, like all this proof. Because I listened to Isabella's when she said like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't even say this," but yeah, Taylor had a massive input or whatever influence over the audition or whatever the casting, my casting, and like even she said the same thing like Blake, like, "Oh, I shouldn't say this," and it's like you. how can you lie like that? That's just so wrong. Like it does when I think about those moments, I have empathy outside of those moments, but in those moments, I just want her, Taylor Swift, and Blake Lively to just go, and Ryan Reynolds to just go down, and for us to just not hear about them. I want their demise. And I think in those moments, not all the moments, because I like Taylor Swift's music and I feel like she's needed to a little bit, but like it just hurts for someone to have that much power is so wrong. And they exist, these people exist. But man, why are we to believe that she really didn't have anything to do with it when she's powerful enough, and we know she's powerful to like control her image and all this stuff. And I think the stories that are kind of left out there about her are kind of left because otherwise it would be too good to be true and people would start sniffing around. So it's like you have to have some bad stories about you. I don't know. Maybe this is a theory. I don't know if she truly erased the internet. I don't know. But I remember because I was in my Taylor era, to use her word. And I remember like thinking that's weird. I think maybe a Swiftologist talked about that. I'm gonna look that up because I was watching his video, a lot of videos. You thought the dog was adorable, Maria? Okay, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, money, money, money. They believe is that it is supposed to be Blake. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember. I was so confused that one live. You were all trying to tell me that, and I was so confused. Like, who is the dog supposed to be? Emily, like his wife. I would be messed up. And but Blake, okay. Why would Blake be again so ugly? The dog was I don't know, it had its interesting qualities, I guess I should say. Um, but yeah, yeah. It was absolutely directed at Justin Baldoni. It's yeah, it is obvious. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. We created money. I think power is the root of all evil. Ignorance, um, people, you know, maybe after this podcast, I would say compensating for being loved by yeah, getting more money, getting more power, um, to fill in that void, I think, yeah. But yeah, anyways, we'll talk more tomorrow. Tomorrow, it's oh my gosh, it's almost midnight here. My birds are being really brave and I get to see them sleep because yeah, I didn't think I was up this late. They're cute. They're both in their own separate cages. I don't know if this is of interest to anyone, but yeah, they're both in their own little spot. And that's Aru that keeps, you probably don't hear her, but she keeps like chirping like really quietly. I love her even more after getting this other bird. Like we have a bond. Thank you so much for joining me and for helping me name potentially the bluebird, blue version. And um yeah, I'm learning so much with you guys and I'm growing so much and I love to see these conversations. This fills my heart 'cause it's so important to me. This is I don't know what I feel I was like, I don't know, it's in me all the time. So, yeah, craziness, craziness. We didn't get that much tea from this podcast, but we got some beautiful stuff. So, have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thank you for coming here, joining. And sorry that I didn't get to like the Super Bowl and all that stuff. I'll get to it tomorrow. 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. I just I feel wary of going later. I know a lot of you are more like West Coast. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for being here. Don't know what else to say. Peace, love, and compassion. And yeah. Bye. Good night.